Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Audio Fanfics and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto awakened the power of the Sharingan, and Hinata, Ino, Sakura, Temari and Tenten chose him above all Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Morning. Naruto and Sakura called to Kakashi as he appeared moments after they did. Okay. We'll have to. Sensei. Sakura said hesitating. He waited already aware, but allowed his student to tell him. Yesterday as you know Naruto and I looked for a third member to partake in this year's Chunin exam. Sakura began. Kakashi nodded. I was directed to a genin who hasn't been active and after speaking with her she agreed to be on our team for just the exam. And after that I will go back to my nice quiet life. Raku said appearing behind Naruto and getting the blonde to yelp in surprise. Hello. Kakashi said. Hataki-san. Raku said with a bow of her hooded and masked head. Raku. This is my teammate, and friend Naruto Uzumaki and our sensei Kakashi Hataki. Sakura said making introductions. Boys. This is Raku. Ayame directed her to me when she learned how much trouble we were having finding someone we could work with. Naruto had listened last night when Sakura told him that she had found someone when they joined the Hokage for a late dinner. Hello Raku-chan. Naruto said. I'm not sure I remember seeing you in my previous attempts at the academy. Naruto said, freely admitting his previous failed attempts. Raku shrugged. Her muffled voice answered with, I was 3 years prior to your entry Naruto-san. Just Naruto. Naruto said. All right then. Fill out these and we can begin working on team strategy. Kakashi said handing them the forms. Once the three filled them out, he summoned a dog and told it to take them to the Hokage Tower to the old man himself only. Now then, let's begin with simple formations and XX. The hours passed quickly and the three showed that they had impressive teamwork and one would think they'd been working together for years. Well, Raku is experienced, and the months together for Naruto and Sakura have bonded them in many ways. Kakashi thought as they used an attack formation to take down his clones in an impressive display of traps from Sakura, ninjutsu from Naruto with his cage bunshin and several fire jutsu he learned over the months from Kakashi, and Raku's taijutsu and ninja wire attacks. Kakashi winced as she used her ninja wire in a web-like pattern to shred his clone. That's the shredder. The masked girl said and Kakashi knew that she was very skilled with the ninja wire, she could use that and chakra wire in deadly combination. Her skill with throwing spikes was also impressive. Okay. We've gotten several formations, in defense and attack. Kakashi said as they rested before him. His usual students were eating lunch that he'd gotten, while Raku managed to eat without removing her mask, getting a smirk and U-shaped eye smile from Kakashi. We've also done capture the flag and nin tag. Raku said. Also king of the mountain. Naruto said with a grin, and Kakashi had to admit the blonde's use of cage bunshin was something and he'd knocked Kakashi off the poles with overwhelming force, and improved skills. During all of this Kakashi had forbidden the use of the Sharingans and reminded the pair that they were a last resort and they had agreed. Team spar. Kakashi said. What? Sakura asked. He wants us to do a free-for-all against each other with just taijutsu. Raku said. Kakashi nodded. Correct. I want the three of you to learn about one another's style, that way you can cover the holes in one another's defense. He looked at the position of the sun and knew he'd need a watch, his last one was somewhere at the bottom the sea near wave. We'll do that for an hour, and then tomorrow we'll repeat team maneuvers and in the afternoon a spar and then we'll fight the three of you against me to see how well you learn about one another. Kakashi watched as the three fought, Naruto and Sakura working well at covering one another he noted. Raku attacked Sakura more and he noted the two girls seemed to leave Naruto open. Naruto he saw frown, then go after both girls, making them defend one another. Good. Naruto saw the problem. He watched as they alternated and he smiled to himself seeing as the blonde forced them to fight and defend him. Raku he noted kept hesitating when it came time for her to attack Naruto from Sakura. Don't do it. You have to hit him. Kakashi thought as the masked girl would hit, but would pull her punch. Kakashi finally called time and all three slumped to the ground with groans. Hey, they could give Guy and his student a workout. He thought proudly. All right, we'll call it a day here. Good job all three of you. He said. Naruto, a moment. Naruto told Sakura he'd meet up with her and bid Raku a good day before he jogged over to Kakashi. The silver-haired Junin waited till the girls were gone before he spoke. Nice job spotting the flaw with the girls attacking only one another. Naruto shrugged. You said we had to. So anytime they would avoid hitting me, I'd throw myself in. Naruto. Kakashi began. Since coming back to Konoha, the Junin had gotten an apartment complex and the two of them had been remodeling it inside and out. Sakura basically had moved in and was helping as well. During the exam, I am expecting you to keep the team together and going. You are the captain when I'm not there, he said, putting a gloved hand on the blonde's shoulder. But, wouldn't Sakura or Raku be better suited? They're both smarter, and Raku's used to being. I've chosen you, Naruto, Kakashi said. You're the glue that holds the team together, the heart of the team. Sakura is smart, there's no denying that, but we both know it's a book smart. You are street smart. Kakashi looked at his student. But together the two of you can do anything. Remember our time at the inn. The two of you can do anything when you put your minds to it. Naruto sighed. Very well, sensei. I will try my best. Naruto said. Kakashi patted him on the back. Come on. I'll buy you a bowl of ramen before we hit the electrical wiring. Naruto winced. I still say we call an electrician sensei. Kakashi I smiled. We'll be fine. XX. Ichiraku's ramen stand. Naruto was telling the old man about the training over his fifth bowl of ramen, his chopsticks waving about and jabbing with gusto. So you'll be able to take the exam after all. Chuki said with a smile. I hope you all do well then. Raku-chan is cool. I don't understand why a skilled ninja like her would give up. Naruto said after a bit. Ayame, who was coming out of the kitchen, paused. She was badly hurt emotionally with the loss of her team. Ayame said sadly. You know her, Ayame-ne-chan. Yeah, the waitress said. After her team and sensei died, she quit. She lost the will to continue. Ayame said, putting the bowl in front of Naruto. Naruto nodded in understanding. He and Sakura were still brittle about the loss of Sasuke. I don't know if I could continue if anything happened to Kakashi-sensei or Sakura-chan. He looked up, his lone blue eye shining with emotion. The fact she's willing to help us shows how strong she is. Naruto said. Ayame smiled softly at the blonde her and her father had adopted into their hearts. I think her helping you and Sakura will be good for her. She spends too much time alone. Chuki coughed as he pointed to the delivery pack. I know you were busy with your other job earlier, dear, but there are deliveries to make. Ayame sighed. I'm on it. See you later, Naruto-ni-chan. She said and lifted the pack and rushed off after getting the delivery list from her father. I didn't know Ayame-ne-chan was working another job. Naruto said, watching her go. Chuki smiled. It's something she does once in a while. I know that it's going to be time consuming for the next month, as her employer needs her more. Naruto looked at him. Anything I can do to help around her, old man. Chuki smiled wider and laughed. Nah. Just come by and visit for a meal now and then. And tell me how your team is doing. You bet I will. Naruto said, and Kakashi paid for the meal. Before they left, Naruto looked at the old ramen cook. Hey, do you know an electrician? XX. Team 7 apartment. The loud zap and pop indicated a bad connection and Naruto laughing as Kakashi stood there with his hair smoking while glaring at the wires before him. Kakashi looked at Naruto. We can do this. We should call the man, old man, Chuki suggested. The blonde countered. Sakura had asked if they needed help and they waved her off, telling her to go visit her mom. They'd see her for dinner. Naruto. It's the principle. Why pay for someone to do it when you can do it yourself? You mean like all the D-rank missions we do? Right. Just like. Kakashi glared at his student, who whistled innocently and went back to his own task of opening up a wall between apartments on the first floor and putting in supports. You know, this is going to be so cool. Naruto said. Kakashi agreed. He'd bought the building cheap and with his students was turning it into an impressive home. Just leave me the back 2 apartments for myself. Kakashi said as the shadow clones removed rubble and carried lumber. I'll make that my personal room. We can open those 2 up for you to merge together. Naruto said. Kakashi thought about it and nodded. Like the dividing wall and arch. Gotcha. Naruto said, creating several more clones and gave them their orders and tools. Kakashi went back to the wiring. This isn't so bad, he thought. Zap. Call the electrician. Kakashi said on the ground, his hair smoking worse than the Hokage's pipe. XX. The week passed quickly and Team 7-2 got better and Friday rolled around. Sakura and Naruto met Raku outside of the academy. Are you ready? The masked girl asked. They had sealed weapons and gear into scrolls as if they were doing a long-distance mission. Both Sharingan wielders nodded. Let's do this, Naruto said, pushing the door open and Team 7 entered the academy. The Chunin exam had arrived. The foyer was packed and Naruto, Sakura and Raku saw that they were trying to get past a pair Jonin. Raku leaned in close. It's a genjutsu. Her voice was low enough that they right next to her barely heard it. We need to get past them to the stairs, Naruto said looking around, his memory telling him where the stairs were. Taking his teammates' arms he led them along the wall. Slow and try not to be noticed, Sakura whispered. They watched as a boy with a strange bowl cut and wearing green spandex was kicked away from the door. Naruto froze. Look at those eyebrows, he whispered seeing the boy stand up in front of them. Raku, thinking fast, cast a genjutsu over her teammates to hide them. She nudged them forward. They watched as the boy stood and shrugged off the blow. His teammates acted concerned. They reached the stairs and slid through the genjutsu hiding it. Raku dropped her camouflage jutsu and sighed into her mask. It's a part of the test it would seem. Getting past a simple trap to get to the test. Wonder how many it cut down. Sakura mused. Let's go. We can't get bogged down here, Naruto said, thankful both girls got them through. You're the one who remembered where the stairs were, Sakura said as they went to the next floor. How is that? Raku asked from behind the mask. A lot of time spent here over the years. I came in at night many times when it was lights out, so I had to remember the layout and number of stairs and how many steps to the classroom, Naruto said. Well, it's a good thing. We could be stumbling around down there, Sakura said, and they looked over the rail from the third floor seeing several groups trying to find the stairs and ignoring the doorway guarded by the two ninja. They saw Naruto freeze hearing the voices and then his laugh. What? Those aren't Jonin. That's Izumo and Katetsu, Naruto said. They're cool and have a wicked sense of humor. Sakura blinked and then her mind recalled the pair of Chunins that guarded the gates. Those clowns. Raku shook her head. They may not act it, but they are skill ninja. They just enjoy having fun. Naruto nodded and they turned to see the three genin that had been trying to get access to the door. The boy with the large eyebrows, bowl-cut hair and wearing the hideous spandex stopped and his eyes widened at seeing Sakura. What a beautiful woman. He stepped forward. Damn it, Lee, we don't have time, the bun-style girl with him hissed. Naruto blinked and he recalled them from last year's attempt to pass the academy. Rock Lee, who looked different than when he'd been with him in class, Neji Hyuga. Another cold Tem, as Naruto had thought of him, and Tenten, a girl he'd been in the orphanage with. Tenten, he said in greeting. The bun-haired girl looked at him and blinked. He could tell she was trying to recall him. Her eyes took in the sun-kissed hair, whiskers and the lone blue eye. Naruto, she asked. He nodded and gave her a grin. Finally made it, she said, giving him a grin. Naruto saw Sakura trying to avoid Lee's attempts to ask her out, while Raku stood back, as did Neji, who had a bored cold look on his face and his arms were crossed. Yeah, her hand reached out and froze. What happened? She asked, her mind remembering Naruto with two blue eyes that used to sparkle with mischief. RC rank turned to A rank. Sakura-chan and I were badly injured, and we lost a teammate, he said. They could speak about it in brief moments thanks to their sessions with Inoichi Yamanaka. I'm so sorry, Tenten said. She recalled her first C rank. Fate decreed it would happen. Neji and Tenten sighed as she shot her teammate a look. Will you stop that shit? She hissed. Kami, what did I ever see in him? She thought. So, you're taking the exam then? She asked Naruto. Raku-chan here has agreed to be our teammate for it as it requires a 3-person cell, Naruto said. He gestured and they started to walk. Naruto Uzumaki, a voice said, and Tenten groaned as the blonde that was walking next to her turned. I Rock Lee, the beautiful beast of Konoha, challenge you for the hand of the beautiful maiden Sakura. Naruto looked beyond Lee to see Sakura mouth sorry, and he knew that she'd said something to Lee to get him to stop his advances. At least she's not as violent as she used to be. Naruto thought of all the times she drilled him into the ground. Hey, funny. Ever since Wave I've not asked Sakura out. Naruto thought. I will never be Sasuke. He thought sadly, refusing to be second best, despite their closeness now. I'm just a stand-in. Perhaps later Lee. Naruto said, trying to be diplomatic. I really don't want to be late for the exam. Tenten, whose hand had been on his arm, gave him a squeeze. How about after we can have a friendly spar, but not for Sakura, as she is her own person. Naruto said, and with that he didn't realize it, but the three females smiled at that. Naruto turned back to see Tenten and ignored Lee's shouts of youth, and what he would do if he failed to beat Naruto. He's gotten louder since the academy. Naruto said as they walked. Sakura on his other side while Neji was ahead and Raku behind. Lee was way behind, still ranting about youth. He takes after our sensei. Tenten said. The five stopped, seeing Kakashi waiting for them with a man wearing Jonin vest over the same outfit they'd seen Lee wearing. Ah, Kakashi, your students have taken after you, it seems. The man said. You say something, guy? Kakashi asked after winking at his team. Curse you and your hip attitude. Guy said. He looked at Naruto and his team. So, is my eternal rival Kakashi here a good teacher? It was Sakura who answered. Did you say something, Guy sensei? Tenten nearly burst out laughing at the shocked look on her sensei's face. Naruto didn't spare the man's feelings as he outright laughed. Raku no one could tell behind her mask, and Neji was indifferent. Kakashi smiled behind his mask. I am glad you three arrived and are in good spirits. Tenten patted his arm, and with Neji and Lee entered the room while their sensei was going on about the flames of youth. They dragged Lee physically. Naruto looked at his teammates and shuddered. I pray we never end up like Lee. Kakashi patted his shoulder. Now remember, just try your best and I am proud of all of you. He included Raku, but the mask made it difficult to tell her reaction. And stay safe, he said, leaving with Guy, who was still spouting off about youth, as they headed for the lounge for the senseis that were to wait. Let's do this, Naruto said, and Sakura met his eye, nodded. XX. Well over 100 genin filled the room. Naruto felt a shiver of nervousness and looked at Sakura. Her lone eye was looking around the room. He reached out and put a hand on her shoulder, giving it a comforting squeeze. They walked further in and Naruto saw Tenten and her team across the room. The bun-haired girl was talking rapidly to the Hyuga. His blue eye noted the other rookie Konoha genin, spotting Kiba, Hinata and Shino. Forehead. Naruto turned to see Ino walk in behind his team with her teammates, Shikamaru and Choji. You're here too. What a drag. The Nara said in his way of greeting, which Naruto translated into, you're here, great to see you. Guys. Naruto said, nodding his head. Shikamaru looked at Raku and lazily raised an eyebrow. Naruto, who understood the lazy genin, made the introductions. This is Raku. She's agreed to be our teammate for the exam. That's a girl? Ino asked. Raku explained. Between the armor and wraps it's hard to tell. The muffled voice from the mask explained. So we're all here, Kiba said. Sakura and Naruto exchanged looks. The unspoken, all but Sasuke, hung in the air between them. They talked about missions, Team 7 listening in as they'd avoided missions since coming back from Wave, as they spent the whole time training and healing. So what did you guys do? Kiba asked. Healed, trained, Naruto said. What? I thought you had to have so many missions done before you could take the exam. Kiba explained. Before Naruto could answer with a shrug, someone else interjected their opinion. That is false. The rookies turned to see a young man with short white hair, glasses and wearing a Konoha Hitai. And who are you? Shikamaru asked for the group. Kabuto. The glasses wearing teen answered. The only thing you need to enter the exam is your Jonin's approval. The rookies shared a look. And how do you know this? Shino asked from next to Hinata. This will be my 7th time trying to pass the exam. Each time it's different as it's held at different villages. Weak. Many of them thought. But I have gathered a lot of information over those attempts. Kabuto said, realizing he was losing his audience. He pulled out a deck of cards. My ninja info cards have stored a lot of data. Kiba grabbed one and looked at it. It's blank. Kabuto smiled and took the card back. Well, for anyone else they would be, but once I channel some of my chakra into them like this, I can give you a heads up about anyone here. Really? Hiba looked excited. How about Naruto Uzumaki then? The Inuzuka looked at the blonde and shrugged. Just want to see how you've improved since we last met at the academy. Kabuto nodded and after a moment looked at the card and blinked. Now that's odd. What? Hiba asked. The only thing I have on a Naruto Uzumaki is his name, rank and the number of missions. Hiba looked at it and saw that it was true. Name: Uzumaki, Naruto. Age: 16. Ninja ID: 012607. Rank: Genin. Cell 7. Sakura Haruno, Sasuke Uchiha, deceased, Jonin instructor, Kakashi Hatake. Mission report. D ranks: 25. C rank: 1 failure with note. B rank: NA. A- rank: 1 solo. S rank: 1 failure, formerly C rank. Note: client lied, mission became high A rank to low S rank. Jutsu. Classified. What the hell? Hiba said looking at Naruto. You had a solo A rank. Naruto closed his eye and sighed. Mizuki. He muttered. Sakura heard and understood it. Back off, Kiba, she said, clenching her fist. But, the Inuzuka said, but that was cut off as there was a loud bang and the front of the room was filled with chunin. And a large man in a trench coat and bandana. Plant your asses, maggots. Name's Ibiki, and for the next hour I am your one and only god. Everyone found assigned seats. Naruto realized he was near the front of the room sitting next to Hinata. Sakura and Raku were both behind him, Sakura by 3 rows, and Raku all the way back on the opposite side of the room. Ibiki smirked as he had a chunin hand out the test sheet. Naruto listened and mentally winced as the man gave the rules. Man, why does it have to be a paper test? Naruto mentally whined. He studied the questions. No way for a genin to answer these. Man, I'm going to fail. He thought. It was then that he noted several people cheating, trying to look casual. That's it. The only way to pass this is to steal the answers. Naruto sighed as he thought and trashed several ideas. He finally went back to the rules and smirked. He looked around and noted which students were doing well, and his idea formed. He reached into his pouch casually, and after several people were eliminated, Naruto made his move. The smoke bombs went off, filling the whole room. Naruto, using the memory exercises Kakashi had taught him, remembered where the chunins were hidden amongst the students and stole the test and made it back to his seat while Ibiki opened the windows to clear the smoke. Hey, I'm the best. Naruto thought as he pretended to write the answers and put his name on the test. I just hope it was the right thing. The exam continued as more were eliminated, and then the 10th question came. Naruto of old would have spoken out against Ibiki, but this newer Naruto sat calmly as several more teams were eliminated. He'd saw that the Hyuga girl next to him kept shooting him looks, but he ignored it after giving her a smile of encouragement. Those of you that remain, passed. Ibiki intoned. After disbelief from many and many yelling out why and about the test, Naruto watched as Ibiki removed his bandana and explained to them that it had been the purpose of the test, that they could be tortured and killed for gathering information. He had just placed his bandana on when the window exploded and 4 kunai were launched, 2 hitting the ceiling, to the floor to unveil to reveal a banner and young woman wearing fishnet bodysuit, a skirt and long coat. You're early, Anko, Ibiki said with a resigned air. Faye, the woman said and looked around, her eyes taking in the room. Wow, 11 teams. You did a kick job, Ibiki, she said. Naruto looked and saw that 33 genin were scattered about the room. He had to admit that he thought there should have been more. All right, you shits, my name in case you missed it. She pointed at the banner behind her. As Anko Mitarashi. And I am the head examiner for the next test. She headed for the door, and when no one moved she sighed. On your feet, maggots. The gathered genin leapt up and followed her out the door. Teammates drifted together, many for safety from the strange woman that held their fate in her hands. We made it, Sakura said with a sigh of relief. Only to the next test. Raku said, taking up a spot on Naruto's other side. As they walked, Naruto saw that the other Konoha rookies were there as well as Tenten's team, and Kabuto's team. Konoha's doing well in the Chunin exam. He thought. 15 of us are from Konoha. 5 out of 11 teams. They followed Anko at a distance, and Naruto scanned the rest of the teams. A team from Suna, a team from Kusa, a team from AIM, an Odo team, a team from Kiri and a team from Iwa. Naruto noted the other teams. They reached a gate and Naruto saw where it was. He'd been there a couple times as a child to escape villagers. Welcome to what many call hell, I call home. This is Training Ground 44, known affectionately as the Forest of Death. Anko said. She went on to explain the test and what it would entail. Naruto had an urge to taunt her, but kicked it down, so he remained silent between Raku and Sakura. Hiba it seemed however unable to keep quiet and mocked Anko. It got him a kunai cut on his cheek and the Jonin appearing behind him with another blade held at his throat. That could have been me. Naruto thought and was glad he remained quiet. He saw the grass nin with the kunai. Is that her tongue? Sakura whispered. Yes. Raku answered. Gross. Indeed. Naruto said as Anko took her kunai back and went back to the front of the group and explained to them about the scrolls and passed out the forms to sign. XX. Naruto stood against the gate they were assigned. Suggestions. He asked Raku and Sakura. There aren't that many teams left, we're either going after one of the foreign teams or one of our allies. Raku began. You mean fight our friends? Sakura asked surprised. We can't do that, can we? We might have to. Sakura. Naruto said. You heard that psycho woman. That Suna team gives me a bad vibe. Raku said. Naruto nodded. We avoid them then. He looked at the forest behind him. Listen, I've been here before when I was younger. That Anko woman is right, it's not safe. There are dangers in here besides the other teams. The plant life, giant tigers, bears and bugs that can strip the flesh from a man in 5 seconds. Sakura looked like she wanted to be ill. Raku he couldn't tell with the mask, but her body looked tense. We'll be okay. I know some of the forest. Naruto said and he held up the map that they had been given with the scroll. I have a compass as well. Sakura said holding it up. We're set. A loud buzzer sounded. And we're off. Naruto said as the gate opened and teams all around the forest rushed in. XX. Team 7-2 rushed further into the woods. Naruto stopped suddenly. What's wrong? Sakura asked. We need to do something if we get separated. The blonde said. Sakura looked at him. They had the bond the fox had created, but they needed something for Raku. Huddle. Naruto said. It was something they decided during the training so they could talk low and avoid being overheard. Suggestions. A sign. Raku suggested. A password. From Sakura. Naruto pulled the marker from his shoulder and took Sakura's hand and wrote something on it. He then looked at Raku who pulled her glove off and watched as Naruto wrote another word, and finally he looked at his hand. Sakura took the marker and wrote a word getting a chuckle from Naruto and even one from Raku. On Sakura's hand was Ichiraku's. On Raku's hand was miso. And on Naruto's was ramen with a bowl under it. Good. We'll show that if we get separated. Raku put her glove on and didn't say anything. Sakura looked at the word on her hand. This will wash off, right? Naruto scratched his cheek. After a lot of scrubbing. Sakura growled. Raku spoke up. At least we don't have to worry about it coming off while we fight. Sakura sighed. Knowing the masked girl was right, but still, she'd be a walking advertisement for Naruto's favorite ramen stand until it came off. But he's got his own mark as well, and it doesn't matter to him. Sakura felt her hand clench and sighed. Let's go. They went to the trees and made some good time. Sakura knew that if this was before Wave, she'd have been exhausted long ago. I really was pathetic, she thought. Raku and Naruto both seemed to have boundless energy as they moved. Naruto held up a hand and they halted. He used hand speak and Sakura nodded. It was something that Kakashi had taught them. Out loud Naruto said, I need to take a leak. Not here you don't, Sakura said. And not in front of a lady. Naruto snorted. Raku isn't complaining. As his hand hovered over his zipper. Unknown to both Naruto and Sakura, Raku was a deep beet red under the mask. Go use a bush. Sakura growled. Naruto sighed. Fine. He said and signed something before walking off. Sakura looked at Raku who hadn't moved. Sorry about him. He has yet to evolve. Raku seemed to clear her throat. Do not think that of Naruto. He has changed much in the recent months, has he not? Sakura nodded. She was saved from answering as Naruto reappeared. She looked at him and frowned. Raku. I see it. The muffled voice. Hey guys, I feel better already. The Naruto before them said. How dumb do you think we are? Sakura asked. What do you mean? First off, the headband is on the wrong eye. Sakura said. Secondly, you don't have the mark on your hand you held up and waved at us. Raku continued. Kukuku. Naruto said. A puff of smoke revealed a mask-wearing nin. It seems I need to study my transformation better. The masked nin said. Sakura shook her head. You also need to learn to tie better knots. The nin turned to see Naruto holding the ropes he'd been tied up in. Iruka-sensei ties better knots and he doesn't even try. The blonde said and threw the ropes at him. Before they connected, the nin was kicked from behind by Sakura. He rocketed towards Naruto, who spun and connected with a spinning back kick that sent him towards Raku. Express delivery, Naruto said. Raku shook her head and did a flip kick that sent the nin rocketing towards the sky. Return to sender, her muffled voice intoned. Naruto smirked as he leapt. Sakura, already ahead of him on a branch, took his hand when he reached her and she used the slingshot maneuver they learned from Kakashi, which elevated him over the nin, and Naruto spun in the air and his heel kick folded the man into a U shape and he rocketed to the ground where he impacted with the force of a meteor. Raku and Sakura landed next to the crater and Naruto landed with a crouch. Check him. Sakura did. He doesn't have the scroll, she said after emptying the nin's pouches out. Take the weapons and tags. Raku nodded and split them amongst their gear. What of his food? Naruto shook his head. He might have it poisoned and have already taken the antidote. Both girls nodded. Well, let's go. We need to either find his teammates, or someone else with the other scroll. The three left, none of them seeing a figure watching from the shadows of a tree. XX. Outside the forest, Anko looked at the mangled remains of the team from Kusa. They were brutally murdered and one body was missing its face. Alert the Hokage. We have a hostile intruder in the forest, she said to the closest Anbu. I'm going in. Catch up when you can, she said before leaping through the open gate. At Naruto's insistence, they avoided camping that night until well after midnight, and then they used the hollow of a tree. They set a watch of 2 hours sleep each, Naruto taking the last 2 hours. His eyes scanning the darkness, the tags well hidden at night, his shadow clones stationed around the area hanged into rocks and fallen tree limbs. He looked at where Raku was sleeping with her back against the tree and wondered what their enigmatic teammate looked like. He swore he knew her, but couldn't place where, and it had been itching the back of his mind since the first introduction. She's got to be sweltering in that outfit, he thought. Raku had no skin exposed, gloves, mask, hood completed the outfit. His eye then went over to Sakura, whose face in sleep was relaxed and he could feel her in the bond that the Kyuubi had forged between them. He let his eyes scan the darkness once more, not letting himself think about the changes between him and his pink-haired teammates since the death of Sasuke. If I had been faster, Sakura would be with you by now, you bastard, Naruto thought. He couldn't help it. At times like this, when he was alone with his thoughts, he would think of Sasuke and the what-ifs that surrounded Team 7 since its formation. Shaking his mind out of its rut, he knew he needed to focus on the now. Like Inoichi-san said, the whisker-marked blonde thought as one of his clones was attacked by a wind attack and sent flying. Several minutes later, it was eaten by a giant snake. That doesn't belong here, not one that size, the blonde thought. Sakura. Raku. Wake up. We've got company, he said, touching each girl on a shoulder, his eyes scanning the field with hanged clones between them and whomever took out the sentry clone. What is it? Sakura whispered low. Something attacked my clone, and I think there is a summon out there, a boss from what my clone saw before it was eaten and dispersed, Naruto said. Raku pulled out a crescent-shaped blade. What do you recommend? The masked girl asked. Let them come to us. The clearing is littered with hidden clones, Naruto said from the shadows of the opening of the trunk. So it's a waiting game, Sakura muttered, pulling out her kama. The wicked weapons designed by farmers soon became dangerous implements of bloodletting to a ninja. Naruto slipped a trio of shuriken between his fingers and waited. I don't like this, he muttered. A rustling off to the side and his eye adjusted. Don't move until we're sure of our target. Both girls nodded. This was something they'd practiced with Kakashi in the time leading up to the day of the exams. XX. Anko was not happy. Damn it. I knew something wasn't right, but I ignored my gut. Stupid, she hissed, leaping further and barely landed before leaping again. She stopped and sighed. Even more stupid leaping here without knowing where the bastard could have gotten to. How the hell did I make Jonin making a genin mistake? She muttered. Enko was about to leap when she felt it. The blast of chakra. Looking towards the west and the river she leapt. Got you. XX. Naruto barely got the earth barrier jutsu up as the fireball arced out of the darkness. The barrier dissolved and Naruto saw that female grass nin standing at the opposite end of the clearing. Kukuku. Impressive. I wasn't aware they taught that move to Genin of the Leaf. They don't. I like to pick things up. Naruto answered, his hand behind his back signaled for the girls to stay hid until they had a better clue as to how many people they were facing. So, you and your teammates want our scroll? Naruto asked. Kukukuku. The grass nin chuckled. I don't care about this pathetic test. I came to see what had become of the fabled Sharingan. I heard that the last Uchiha had died on a waste of a mission. Naruto's hand clenched around the shuriken, the metal biting into the palm of his hand. Not that he noticed, nor cared, but he kept his mouth shut wondering what this strange nin wanted. So, if you don't want the scroll, you came here to gawk. Kukuku. Amusing. No, I came to see if I could harvest the Sharingan. I see that you like that waste Kakashi possess only one. Naruto through his bond felt Sakura tense and signaled with his hand for her to remain hidden. The strange nin was talking to herself, her voice changing. One Sharingan already transplanted will not work after another transplant. Shame Itachi killed his clan, my experiments were only beginning then. Naruto's eye narrowed. There was more to this nin than what she appeared. Guess that means you'll leave then. Naruto suggested. The grass nin frowned. And Naruto saw the eyes. They were serpent eyes. Actually, I might as well try another experiment. Since you hold the Kyuubi, I might conduct a few more tests. Naruto's gut clenched as the nin casually mentioned an S-class secret and he winced realizing that Raku had heard it. Deal with the fallout later. We're in danger now. How do you know a Konoha S-class secret? Naruto asked. Kukuku. I know it, because information is power, and the one with the most power will rule the world. Naruto sighed. That's nice. I would have thought. Naruto said and in mid-word launched the shuriken in his hand at the grass nin who moved her head aside, but was grazed by Naruto's attack and clutched the left side of her face. Run. Naruto hissed to the girls as he leapt to a low branch. Both Sakura and Raku were right behind him and they sped along. From behind them very potent killing intent blazed to life, it was nearly stifling, causing the three genin to stagger, but they kept their feet and they leapt again. Their flight came to a screeching halt when they found their path blocked by the same nin they just left behind, but with a gaping wound that showed a shredded face, but the face that was injured showed a second skin, pale and unmarked under the ripped part. The serpent-like eyes boiled with pure unhindered hatred. You little idiot. I was going to let you live, possibly, but now I think I will kill you and just dissect your corpse. The grass nin ripped away the face of the female to reveal that of a pale male face, and voice deepened a bit. Who are you? Naruto asked, his gut twisting. Kukuku. I am Orochimaru. Perhaps you've heard of me. Naruto swallowed and he felt Sakura flinch through the bond. One of the Sannin. Naruto said. The traitor. Kukukukuku. Konoha betrayed me long before I was labeled a traitor. A hail of sanbons from Raku stopped the now revealed man from talking, but he swatted them aside like they were nothing. Attack pattern Delta. Naruto said and lunged his hand pulled back for a blow. Sakura leapt into the air to the left, while Raku went to the right, both sending shuriken and sanbon needles at Orochimaru while Naruto's hands blazed into motion with a jutsu Kakashi taught him. Dance of 100 wind blades. Naruto said, his body in motion with the combination of elemental jutsu and taijutsu attack. The compressed blades of wind arced from Naruto's hands and feet towards the Sannin who was already in motion dodging, the man's body contorting like a snake's. Exclamation mark. Naruto thought. The elemental taijutsu attack was one of his best that Kakashi had taught him one day after they discovered his affinity, but right now Orochimaru was evading them all. Some came close, a hair's breadth close, but still not hitting. Orochimaru flipped till he was on a higher branch, his gaze looking over the three genin. And there is the other eye. Naruto felt Sakura's panic. You said it yourself, they're no good for you. Naruto said getting the Sannin's attention back on him. True, but I might be able to bastardize it with both eyes. Bastard. Naruto yelled and his hands flew through the seals and he spat. Fire style. Great fireball jutsu. Orochimaru managed to dodge, but the branch he'd been on and the trunk of the tree were incinerated. Strong. Shame that you hold the Kyuubi. I wonder what it would be like to have you. Naruto shuddered. Raku didn't hesitate. She leapt forward and attacked, her hands launching a volley of Senbon needles, but they hid the true attack. Orochimaru found himself in Raku's shredder attack of mono wire. Yeah, Sakura cheered. She got him. Naruto held his breath as Raku clenched her hand to slice the Sannin, but he was replaced with a log. Damn. Naruto muttered and looked around wildly for the man. Raku was stepping back, but Orochimaru appeared in front of her. That would have hurt, he said and backhanded her with extreme prejudice, sending her rocketing back towards her team. Raku. Sakura screamed and her hands clenched around her and she shared a look with Naruto. He sent her reassurance through the bond and pulled out his bladed tonfa and they leapt of the incoming Raku and attacked in tandem. The snake Sannin bobbed and weaved, impressed with their teamwork. Is this from the Sharingan? He must as Akama actually sliced several hairs as he ducked and had to roll as Naruto's bladed tonfa nearly hit his face. He shushined up to another branch as Team 7-2 regrouped. Raku on her feet like a punch-drunk boxer from his blow had chakra wires between her hands. Then Naruto was looking up with the tonfa in relaxed position. And finally the pink hair girl had the kama. Impressive amount of teamwork. I see my spy has missed a lot, I wonder how that is. He must. We haven't been around the village a lot. Naruto muttered. Have to tell OG-san as soon as possible about a spy. I am going to looking over your bodies and learning your secrets. It's a shame the Sharingan is useless to me since it's already been transferred, but maybe I can make a bastardized version off a mock-up from your corpse. Orochimaru said and the killing intent rained down on them, trying to put them on their knees or make them afraid to fight. You can stop with the parlor trick. Our sensei spent hours hitting us with killing intent. Sakura finally said. The Ki was giving her a headache. Orochimaru found this funny. This is actually funny. 3 little genin preparing to fight one of the legendary Sannin. Kukukukuku. They knew that in a drawn-out battle they were going to get stomped unless they got really lucky. Get ready to run. Naruto whispered. I'll be sure to send my regards to whomever trained you, you did surprise me. Orochimaru admitted. Care to tell me where to send them to? Your mama. Orochimaru looked up to see a person he thought he wouldn't see again until his choosing. Enko, he said as her booted foot connected with the leaping kick and sending him crashing into a tree trunk. I am so going to enjoy kicking you bastard. The woman the genin recognized as the proctor of the exam snarled. Things had changed, and the genin thought they had a chance. Get to the tower. Enko ordered the genin as she didn't take her gaze off her former sensei. We can help. Naruto said. No, you can't. He's beyond your skill level. Go. She spat several fireballs at Orochimaru who dodged moving away from the genin, but he wasn't going to let them leave. He used the shadow snake hand, but Enko countered with her own. The genin hesitated. Damn it, run you little shits. Enko snarled and Naruto and his team leapt away, the anger pouring off them. Sakura helping the punch-drunk Raku. Lean on me. The rosette-haired girl said and the masked girl accepted it with a pained, thanks. Naruto snarled at the fact they couldn't beat one man. He's a Sannin Dobi. You're not ready for him yet. He heard the mental Sasuke in his head and sighed as he sheathed his weapons. Behind them they could hear explosions. They landed and blinked as 3 squads of Anbu rushed past them towards the battle. The last one with a cat mask and purple hair paused. Get to the tower. The woman's voice ordered again and the genin did as they were told. Good luck. Naruto said. He saw Sakura keeping Raku on her feet and mentally smacked himself. Give her to me, Sakura-chan. I'm sorry, Raku-chan. Tis okay. I'll need my ribs wrapped. What about a head wound? Sakura asked. Raku shook her head. My mask took most of the blow. I'll check with my doctor later, promise. Sakura sighed, worried for their teammate, but they knew they did the right thing in retreating as ordered. XX. It was hours later they finally got word that Orochimaru had fled after Anbu arrived. Enko was sharing the medical room with them. She looked like hell. Raku had her ribs wrapped and changed clothes, telling her teammates she was fine. Now what? That Nin talked about, Raku began, but Naruto held up a hand. Not here. Not now. Later, I swear. Raku nodded her masked head. I guess we're out. No, you're not. They turned to see Anko sitting up in her bed. Your test was interrupted by an outside force. You were moved on to the next round, she smirked. Just this one time. He does it again, and you'll have to wait till the next one. Thanks, Naruto said. Anko waved it off. Not needed. You Gakis did okay against him. You actually had him on the defensive for a bit of time. Naruto snorted. He owned us from start to finish. We were lucky you showed up. The door and the Hokage came in. OG-san. Naruto said with a grin. The old man gave him a tired smile. I hear you had some excitement. Naruto went on to explain the encounter. He talked about. Naruto put a hand over his gut. He also indicated he had a spy placed in the village, and was able to gather information easily. The Hokage sighed as he lit his pipe. In the words of the Nara clan, troublesome. He looked thoughtful. Anko, your thoughts? They held him off for nearly 10 minutes. I would make them shunin right now if I could based on that. Naruto and Sakura blinked. I agree, but the busybodies in the council would disagree. He stroked his beard while puffing on his pipe. For now rest. You've advanced to the next round. The scroll waved due to outside interference. Team 7-2 did as they were told, Raku using a curtain to hide her cot and remove her mask. A bruise was forming on her chin where she'd been hit. Touching it lightly she winced. That's going to take a lot of makeup. Raku thought. And her ribs protested as she sighed. Great, and I have to work tomorrow. Was her last thoughts before falling asleep, safe in the knowledge her teammates wouldn't disturb her rest and she could go without the mask for a night. XX. Hokage's office. Are they okay? Kakashi asked. They are fine. A bit banged up, but unharmed. They are upset they didn't get a scroll, but I had it waved due to outside interference. The Hokage said, sitting behind his desk. We have a spy, he said to the gathered Jonin who he knew were 100% loyal to him. Someone's been giving Orochimaru information and he used it to invade the exam. Was he after the Kyuubi? Asuma asked. No, but he did mention it in front of Naruto's new teammate. The Hokage said. Kakashi winced. Your students did very well, Kakashi. They held off a Sannin-level opponent for 10 minutes on their own. The one-eyed Jonin sighed. Teamwork exercises paid off, and their loyalty to the leaf and one another. The Hokage repeated the report Naruto filed. He wants to study them, so we need to keep watch. Whatever he's after he didn't get before Anko and Anbu chased him off. Is Anko alright? Iruka asked from where he was acting as the Hokage's assistant. A bit battered, but unharmed. The Hokage said. What about canceling the exam? Kurenai asked. Negative. Orochimaru did tell Anko that Konoha would regret that if we did. He's got something set up. This could blow up in our faces. Asuma said to his father, who nodded. Or we could catch a break and capture him. The Hokage saw that Kakashi was anxious. Go check on your team, Kakashi. You're no good to us right now. The silver-haired Jonin said nothing and vanished. Asuma sighed. He's changed. He lost a student. It weighs heavily on any teacher. The Hokage said. He's become very protective of his remaining students, to the point of moving Naruto in with him after buying an apartment complex. Kurenai laughed. They've been remodeling it themselves. I heard a few explosions walking past it. Now then, the other teams are still in the field. Anbu is rounding them up, but the numbers are coming back less than half. What do you suggest? Asuma asked. Get Hayate in here. We're going to have a preliminary tournament. The Hokage said. Great. Asuma thought of his team and winced at how little time they'd spent on taijutsu. His team's tactics were great, but that was it. Kurenai was worried about Hinata in this situation. She wouldn't be protected by her teammates and this could destroy her. Iruka was sitting off to the side wondering how Naruto was doing and if he went to visit, would he see Anko as well? XX. Morning came and Kakashi walked into the infirmary and stopped. Sharing a cot was Sakura and Naruto, and he knew from last night that's not how they were. Looks like Sakura slept-walked again. He smiled as he coughed several times before Naruto's eye blinked and focused on him. Morinin-sensei. He mumbled and Kakashi did laugh when Naruto tried to lift his arm to rub his eye, and realized it was pinned under a sleeping Sakura. He looked at Kakashi and tilted his head. They heard movement behind the curtain and Raku staggered out fully dressed. Should you be moving about? Kakashi asked his temporary student. Have to get to work. Raku said, and they all heard how tired her voice sounded. You were dismissed from that while taking the exam. Kakashi reminded her. Yeah, but I'll hire a pair of Chunin to fill in for you. Just rest and heal. The Hokage had the other surviving teams brought in last night. So at noon be in the main hall of the tower. What's going on, sensei? Naruto asked, still trapped under the sleeping Sakura. With the disruption, there are still too many students, so the Hokage has ordered an elimination tournament. From now on it's one-on-one battles. Raku sat on an empty bed, silent and unreadable with her mask on. Remember, noon. Kakashi said and left the room, snickering how cute his students looked together, then stopped. Blast. Makoto's right. He muttered and wandered off to check security before he had to be in the arena at noon with his students. XX. Tower Arena. Noon rolled around and Team 7-2 entered and were surprised how many teams were here. The other rookie had made it, along with Team 9. The Suna team, the team from Odo, and Kabuto's team. Wow. Sakura said, adjusting her eye patch. Team 7-2 lined up with Naruto in front, followed by Sakura and then Raku. Naruto smiled at Shikamaru, who sighed. A Jonin stepped forward. My name is Gekko Hayate and this is a preliminary elimination round before you can advance to the third and final round. Hey, what's the deal? One of Kabuto's teammates called out. Not everyone here got a scroll. Hayate nodded. Due to unforeseen interference with the second exam in the forest, the teams that remained were drawn in. It seemed the other teams were either already beaten. Looks at the Suna team. Or died, or opened their scrolls. That is the reason for the preliminary tournament, to cut this group in half for the finals. He looked around. Anyone wish to pull out now, please do so now by raising your hand. Kabuto raised his hand. I'm out of chakra still and not very skilled in one-on-one fights. He said. One of the Odo held up their hand as well. My arm was messed up in the forest, I'm out. The girl on his team and the leader glared at him, but he shrugged. A gasp from behind had Naruto turn to see Raku with her gloved hand raised. Sorry guys. My ribs are still pulverized from fighting that guy. I can't continue. Naruto nodded. I'm glad you're honest, Raku, otherwise you could have gotten seriously hurt, or killed here. Sakura nodded. We'll see you later. Raku nodded as she left the arena. Anyone else? Hayate asked. When none took him off, he nodded. Then Gekko Hayate, the proctor of this preliminary exam, call it into beginning. When the board shows your name, please come down from one of the two balconies. When I say the fight is over, you stop. Any questions? There were none and they all waited as the electronic board on the wall lit up and cycled through names. Choji Akamaiki, Leaf. Versus. Dosu Kinuta, Sound. Hayate looked at it and nodded. Would the competitors remain on the arena floor? All others please join your Jonin senseis in the balconies above. Hayate waited until they did so and looked at the two with him on the arena floor. Ready? He asked, raising his hand. At twin nods he brought his hand down. Fight. Naruto watched as Choji went right for the Akamaiki, human boulder, attack. One trick pony. Naruto said and Sakura nodded as Choji rolled around the arena floor. The Oto Nin was easily dodging. You'd think he'd try something else. Sakura said as Choji hit the wall and got stuck. Dosu tried to attack, but Choji faked him out and flattened him. As Choji laughed, the proctor announced him the winner. With a poof he returned to his normal size and was still standing on Dosu, who was groaning at the weight. Winner. Choji Akamaiki. Yeah, I did it. Choji said, jumping up and down. Naruto shook his head. He got lucky that Dosu didn't attack before that. The board activated and they waited. Would the next two competitors come to the arena floor? Rock Lee, Leaf. V's. Akado Yoroi, Leaf. The fight was short. Yoroi boasted his ability to drain chakra, but he drew an opponent that didn't use any. Lee's speed and taijutsu skills decimated Akado, who had nothing after his chakra drain failed. Winner. Rock Lee. Hayate announced and Lee bounced around cheering. His own sensei cheered as well. 2 down, many more to go. Both turned to look at Kakashi. Sensei. Naruto said, his lone eye meeting his teacher's. Raku is getting her ribs re-wrapped. She'll see you both later. Naruto nodded as the next match was called as Hinata Hyuga. Leaf used her family's style to decimate Konkuro Sabuku, Sand. She used her Byakugan to sever the chakra strings and then destroy the puppet. Konkuro cried out and gave up. With his puppet destroyed, he had no real means to continue. Sensei, is it me, or are those specialized in one style lost with their tools destroyed? Correct, Naruto. As you saw, there are ninja who rely on their bloodlines or certain weapons to carry them. That is why I stressed you learning weapons along with taijutsu and ninjutsus. That way you have more than one means to fight. Hinata was declared the winner. Naruto saw her look at him and blush. Why is she looking at me like that? Naruto thought. He blinked at the next two names the board displayed. Neji Hyuga, Leaf. V's. Sakura Haruno, Leaf. Sakura looked at him and he put a hand on her shoulder. Be careful. Neji's got an ego and uses psychology along with the Juken style. Naruto said. Sakura nodded and headed to the floor. Sensei. Naruto asked. Neji is a prodigy. He might be a member of the branch family, but he is a skilled opponent. Just remember we're here and proud of you. Kakashi said. Sakura walked down the stairs. You should give up now. Neji intoned once she stood across from him. And you should get some better conditioner, you have split ends. Sakura said, taking up her stance. Fate has declared me the winner. You can either leave now and spare yourself the humiliation, or I will destroy you. Come on, Sakura. Kick his. Naruto yelled. Neji looked up. An annoyed expression crossed his face. Still acting like a howler monkey when no one wants to hear from you. She is weaker than you and you cheer for her destruction. Neji looked at Hayate. Start the match, it won't be long. Fight. Sakura bent back, avoiding a strike from Neji and brought her foot up, missing his jaw by a centimeter as he evaded. She continued with a couple of kicks and a leg sweep, which turned into a handstand, and she began spinning, her feet like helicopter blades, and Neji was forced to block and evade the powerful kicks. Sakura flipped to her feet and lunged with a palm strike. Neji lashed out and hit a point on her arm. Ah! Sakura backed up, her arm numb from the elbow down. Neji had his Byakugan eyes activated and was smirking. Give up. You won't win. He said. Sakura jabbed several areas on her arm, finding the right one. Neji blinked in surprise as she shook her arm and was flexing her fingers, which still looked a bit stiff. You don't think my sensei taught us ways around the Juken strikes? Sakura shook her head. Your ego really is as large as the Hokage monument. She reached behind her and pulled out the pair of blunted kama. I would use my real ones, but you are a fellow leaf nin. Sakura said, and she gave them a spin in her hands. She came in swinging, her whole body moving as if dancing. Neji backed away, his eyes taking in her movements. When she went for an uppercut blow that scratched his chin, his eyes widened as he leapt over her and touched his chin, which was bleeding. You cut me, he accused. Sakura shrugged. You're too pretty to be a fighter. She taunted and smirked. Maybe what they is true, you do well in a brothel. I heard you like boys. Several eyes in the balcony widened and Naruto laughed as Sakura finally started to learn insults were part of psychological warfare. Neji snarled. His Byakugan eyes blazed with rage, and Hinata in the balcony saw this. Oh, no, she whispered, her hands clenching the front of her jacket. Neji came in and dodged Sakura's blunted kama, his hands blurring as they hit her arms. He backed away as Sakura stood there, arms at her side, the kama dropping to the ground from her nerve-deadened hands. She saw him coming in again and spun with a kick that sent him skipping across the arena floor. Great. I can't feel my arms. Sakura thought. What am I going to do? Sakura thought as she watched Neji get up. Oh, he looks pissed. Maybe I shouldn't have recommended he work a brothel. No, you think. Inner Sakura snarked. Stow it, you. He looks like he's going to kill us. Sakura thought to her inner persona. We need to do something, and fast. Inner Sakura said. Neji came in and Sakura went out of her way to avoid his strikes. She spun around and kicked him in the back, sending him rolling, and she thanked Kakashi-sensei for his taijutsu and endurance training. Let me try something. Inner Sakura said. Try what? Sakura wondered as the inner persona brought up a mental image of her body. She watched as the inner persona studied it, and then to her surprise she felt the pull of chakra, and then her arms tingled. There. Try it now. Inner Sakura said with a satisfied smirk. How? Sakura asked. I'm not sure, but we need to talk later. Inner Sakura said, and Sakura agreed. When Neji came in again, she smirked and connected with an uppercut palm strike that sent him in the air. Remembering Kakashi's lessons, Sakura leapt up as well, and while Neji was in the air she did a flip kick sending him higher. She shushined to the ceiling, and when he was near she clenched her hands together and slammed him with a double axe handle blow. Neji created a crater upon impact and Sakura landed next to it. She sighed. Yeah, way to go Sakura, Naruto said, cheering her on. She turned to smile but felt something strike her leg. Her green eyes turned to look down to see Neji on his knees and her legs buckled under the onslaught of his attack. You are within range of my divination, Neji intoned, and she felt a chill go up her spine. 8 trigrams 64 palms. Neji's strikes connected on 2 different points of Sakura's body. 2 strikes, he intoned. His hands were a blur of motion as he struck Sakura again and again. 4 strikes, 8 strikes, 16 strikes, 32 strikes, 64 strikes. Streams of chakra surged from Neji's fingertips through Sakura's body. Short needle-like beams of chakra could be seen piercing Sakura's body as she flew through the air and landed in an unmoving heap. It's over. Call it, Neji said, catching his breath. Sakura, however, wasn't done, and to the surprise of all and the shock of Neji, she was pushing herself up. Inside her mind, inner Sakura was frantically trying to undo the damage. That bastard. Let me at him. I'll kill him. She yelled as she worked fast, knowing she didn't have long and Sakura was on her last legs after those strikes. You think I'm a weak fangirl? Still, Sakura said, panting between words, her arms shaking as she pushed herself upright. Neji was shocked that she was able to move, as was Hinata watching from the balcony. No one was supposed to overcome that attack. Kakashi, Guy said, looking at his longtime rival. What have you been teaching your students? Everything I know, the one-eyed Jonin said. But I don't know how she did this. He thought, watching as well, his hand on Naruto's shoulder. He could feel the boy's tension. Sakura pushed herself to her feet, wobbling like a punch-drunk boxer. I have grown. I am no longer the weak girl that had to be protected by my teammates. Sakura said. I am stronger, and I will show you and everyone that I won't be taken down easily. Her shaking hand was reaching up for the patch that covered her eye. Neji realized that he couldn't let that happen. He lunged and his strike connected with Sakura's heart. At the same time, her eye became revealed. She staggered back several steps and blinked. She took a step towards him and coughed up a mouthful of blood. Sakura dropped to a knee. No, she whispered. No, not like this. We need to do something. We need to matter. To show Naruto-kun we aren't weak. To show him we can be a strong woman for him. Inner Sakura was ranting. It's over, Sakura realized. He hit my heart. I'm dying. From the balcony, Naruto's roar of rage was heard, and everyone around him was thrown back by the sheer violence of his erupting chakra, even as Hayate announced Neji the winner. Sakura-chan! Sakura-chan! Naruto roared and leapt from the balcony. Kakashi was stunned at being thrown back. Neji, exhausted, made the mistake of being between Naruto and what was his. The blow sent him flying across the arena and he impacted with the giant statue and it collapsed. Naruto reached Sakura. He put a hand to her pulse. Kakashi watched as his student began CPR, and called for the medics to get their asses in gear. Come on, Sakura-chan. Don't do this to me, he said, his voice changing back and forth as his emotions were spilling out. Come on, medic, he called. Kakashi reached his student's side and pulled her patch down, hoping the loss of chakra wouldn't be a factor. Kakashi's hands sped through the medical jutsus he knew, pushed the jutsu at the girl. He hit her heart, he said as the information came to him. Then, looking back over his shoulder, he yelled for help. Where the hell are the medics? Naruto continued with CPR as Kakashi used up the medical jutsus he knew. He turned and saw them attending Neji and rushed over. Get over there. My student is suffering from. We don't deal with demon whores, the medic said as he turned back to attend the concussion Neji suffered. It was the last thing he did as Kakashi slit the man's throat. He rushed back to Sakura and looked at Naruto. Give her to me. I'll get her to the hospital. Naruto looked at him and nodded, backing away as Kakashi picked up Sakura. She was like a rag doll. Kakashi shushined away at the same time, releasing the chakra weights. His mind flowing like a hurricane as he worried about losing another student. XX. Naruto stood. He had blood on his cheek from when Sakura coughed up blood while he was doing CPR to keep her alive. He looked at Neji taking several steps towards him, the temperature in the room dropped as if everyone stood in the Arctic. Naruto found his way blocked by Team 9's sensei, Gaimeta. Out of the way. He growled. His hair was starting to stand on end and his eye flashed back and forth from blue to red then back again. Stop. Guy said. I can't let you do this. Naruto. The Hokage called, stepping onto the arena floor. He had frozen when Naruto landed on the floor, shocked at the anger the boy was showing. Naruto's eye didn't look away from Neji. He tried to kill Sakura-chan. I know Naruto. I know. But you can't do this. Not like this. Naruto growled and several Jonin watching tensed. He reached up and touched his cheek. His hand came back with Sakura's blood. By this blood I swear, I will avenge what you've done to Sakura-chan. Naruto said, clenching his fist, his nails digging into his skin and mixing his blood with Sakura's. Kakashi reappeared when it looked like Naruto was going to bulldoze his way past Guy and the others that were digging Neji out. Naruto. Kakashi said, ignoring the tension. Naruto. Look at me. Kakashi ordered. The blonde finally pulled his head back and looked at his sensei, the lone eye fading back to blue as his breathing steadied. Kakashi put a hand on his student's shoulder. She's going to be okay. Kakashi said. The doctors say that you saved her life keeping her alive like that. Naruto said nothing, but allowed Kakashi to lead him back to the balcony. Not surprising, everyone there backed away. This wasn't the Naruto they knew. The new medics carried Neji out. He had a concussion and would require rest for a few days. The board chimed and all eyes turned to see who was next. Shino Aburame, Leaf. V's. Tsurugi, Leaf. XX. Shino's bugs made short work of Kabuto's last teammate and Shino advanced. Naruto was sitting with his head down. Kakashi had forced him to meditate to calm himself. Ino Yamanaka and Kin of the Sound Village battled that ended in a double knockout. Asuma collected his student while the medics took Kin up as her sensei was missing. Temari Subaku of Suna beat down Kiba Inuzuka and Akamaru with several wind jutsus and she hit Akamaru like a baseball with her fan as it was closed. Kurenai leapt down and caught the dog before it hit the wall. Kiba and Akamaru were loaded onto stretchers as Temari was announced the winner. And yet another match sporting the Leaf Village was rather quick as Shikamaru Nara gave up as Tenten began her attack and before any of her weapons connected. Tenten pouted at the weak win. Shikamaru shrugged and muttered that it was too troublesome, and slouched as he walked up the stairs. That was weak, Shika. Naruto said, his eyes still closed. Meh. I didn't feel like being a pincushion and it was too troublesome to dodge all the weapons she was pulling out. Kakashi looked at the board and groaned as the last match was announced. Gaara Sabuku, Sand. V's. Naruto Uzumaki, Leaf. XX. Naruto looked at the red head and his head to the side, studying him. Gaara looked at him as if studying something under his nails. The raccoon-like eyes stared at him. Mother says you can prove my existence. Gaara said, his voice flat. Naruto blinked, his lone eye taking in Gaara. Your mother sounds like a whack job. Gaara gave a cold smile. You will offer your blood to mother. Fight. Naruto vanished and reappeared in front of Gaara. How about my fist instead? His hand was stopped by a barrier of sand. Naruto back-flipped away as a tendril of sand rushed out to strike him. He spun and slammed a palm strike into another tendril. He ran along the arena wall avoiding sand spikes and he leapt high into the air and in midair shushined. Gaara looked around and the near kick had him wide-eyed. In the balcony Temari looked on wide-eyed as her brother and looked at her sensei. That was close, he's fast. Baki nodded as he watched the blonde move around quicker attacking Gaara at numerous angles. One palm strike landed on Gaara's shoulder spinning him around and Naruto reappeared with a high roundhouse kick, that partially hit as Gaara's sand got in the way, but it was enough to spin him. Naruto reappeared above and hit an axe kick, again blocked and this time a tendril of sand grabbed Naruto by the ankle and slammed him into the ground, cracking the tiles. The same tendril lifted Naruto into the air, but he used a substitution jutsu and reappeared behind Gaara and kicked the gourd, shattering it and sending the redhead flying. Naruto smiled, but before Gaara hit the wall a cushion of sand appeared behind him and he was lowered to the floor. The blonde sighed and formed the cross seal. Cage Bunshin. He snarled, and a dozen clones appeared. Get him. They charged. Amidst a chorus of yells, the kunai they drew slicing away at sand as it rose up to meet them. All around the arena many were taking mental notes of the battle. The Hokage watched as the two met. He'd hoped that they wouldn't, but if they could eliminate the Suna Jinchuriki, it might help in the long run. XX. Naruto leapt into the air while his clones attacked and pulled out a series of shuriken. He attached exploding notes to them and rushed along the wall, as his clones kept the redhead's attention, and once he was sure, he launched the exploding shuriken. He smirked as the redhead moved his head, which he wasn't aiming for, and when he attacked the clones, the explosion took him from behind. In the balcony, Kakashi smirked behind his mask as Naruto planted more exploding tags and pinballed the sand user from one to another. Interesting strategy. Kakashi turned to see Guy. I wish to apologize for Neji's actions. Kakashi didn't say anything. There will be a reckoning. He went too far. I know. Guy said. I am not sure what to do with him. His ego and superiority, they are not youthful, but he holds on to his bitterness and hatred like armor. Kakashi shook his head as another explosion took place below. It is an armor Naruto will peel off of him as he is doing to the Sunanin below. Not only is his explosions keeping his opponent off balance, but he is destroying the sand. Guy watched as Naruto and Gaara were lobbing hunks of the arena at one another. Naruto using the substitution jutsu to avoid the sand that Gaara was able to still use. This could be a while. Kakashi said. He looked at Guy. I suggest you keep Neji well away from Naruto for now. Sakura is his only world right now. If I hadn't returned and told him she was okay, I don't think we'd be talking right now. Your student is that good. His rage would make what he holds seem like a naughty kitten that got caught with the canary. Naruto has improved so much since. He looked on as his remaining student kicked and punched. The battle was in close now, the sand once more getting in the way. The clones were dealing with the tendrils as they rose, but there still was a lot of sand for Gaara to use. Naruto, who are you fighting for? Yourself. Sakura. Me. Or Sasuke. The one-eyed Jonin sighed as Naruto got too close and was slammed into the arena wall. At the same time Gaara screamed. My blood. I'm bleeding. Aaggghhhhh. The Sunanin looked nervous and Gaara was holding his shoulder where Naruto stabbed him with a kunai. This just got more dangerous. Kakashi said, feeling the spike in killing intent. This went from a preliminary elimination round to the main event at WrestleMania. The Jonin thought as Naruto's clones attacked the sand, holding him to the wall. Gaara was gathering the sand around him to form an orb, while screaming about blood and pain. Across the way Temari looked scared. He's been hurt. Baki was pale. Shit. He's going to transform here. What do we do? We never expected this to happen. Temari said. Konkuro, who had returned, looked on in fear. I think this is the case of putting our heads between our knees, look up and kiss our collective goodbye. Temari was nearly forced to agree. She was afraid, a bit for herself, but more so for her little brother. The orb of sand formed around the wounded Gaara. Naruto's clones he created began to chip their way in, while the original stood back and planned out his next move. He's like I am. He holds something. Naruto thought. But he's too reliant on the sand, his taijutsu is non-existent. The blonde thought. One of his clones dispelled and he got the information. I'll have to use it. He thought and took up a stance. He put a hand over his head and began to gather chakra while his left hand formed the seal. In the balcony Kakashi saw this, his eye widened. What is he doing? Guy asked. During our time training, Naruto came up with several pure chakra attacks. He made them. Guy was surprised. Kakashi chuckled. He's very inventive when motivated. So what's this one? Guy asked as they watched chakra spin and flatten out, forming a disc that soon was as big as a manhole cover. He's dubbed this one Destructo disc. I'd say it's an A- rank assassination move. A rank. Guy said in shock and surprise while questioning his longtime rival. Yeah, when he throws it, it cut and cauterizes. I avoided it and it sliced through several trees. Below Naruto hurled the disc of chakra and they watched as it was deflected by a tendril of sand. But the real kicker is that if it's avoided, or deflected, it comes back. The disc spun through the air and seemed to run the arena wall, leaving a furrow where its edge seemed to lightly brush. Those in the balcony watched as it returned and attacked again. This time the tendril wasn't fast enough and was sliced in half, along with the top of the orb. As the sand fell to the ground, everyone could see into the orb from above and were shocked at what they were seeing. Sweet Kami. Gaara was merged with his sand, half flesh, half sand, which was looking like a raccoon. Naruto dispelled the disc before it could come around again. He thought and discarded several plans, then pulled out a scroll and after biting his thumb tossed it to the center of the arena. Release. Once the cancellation was activated, everyone watched as the scroll spewed a fountain of water into the air, and the arena floor was soon an inch deep in water. This had the bonus of ruining the rest of the sand and causing the bottom of the sand orb to turn to mush and collapse, bringing it down around Gaara and revealing him to Naruto. Ugh. Talk about fugly. You got hit by the ugly stick. Naruto said. Gaara's eyes, sand and normal, locked on him and he swung with the arm of sand. Naruto leapt in the air and the appendage connected with the wall where he'd been with the force of a battering ram, cracking it. Naruto watched as the water got deeper, but Gaara seemed to ignore it as he sent tendrils of sand at Naruto from his still dry sand. Naruto avoided them and his hands spun about. Water style. Water dragon jutsu. The water formed up and Kakashi on the balcony was proud. Naruto had mastered this without the use of the Sharingan. He hadn't copied any jutsu that Kakashi taught him, he learned them all the proper way. The water dragon roared and sped at Gaara, slamming him into the wall with the force of a locomotive. As the Suna Genin slid to the ground, his ribs in pain, Naruto formed another series of seals. Lightning style. Lightning missile jutsu. The arrow of lightning launched, not at Gaara, but at the water-covered floor that was now 12 inches deep and Gaara was sitting in. Hayate. The proctor managed to leap into the air and landed near the Hokage and the safety of the raised platform a second before the lightning arrow hit the water. Gaara's scream was normal and echoed as if two voices were coming out at the same time. Shocking. Naruto said using chakra to stick to the wall. XX. My god. Temari said as she looked at the smoking form of her younger brother. Is he dead? She looked at Baki who shook his head in wonder as well. This had been a first for them in many ways. Gaara had been hurt, and now it looked like he was beaten, by all the reports the dead last of Konoha's academy. If he's the dead last, what can their best do? Baki thought that the plan was definitely down the crapper. XX. Naruto looked on, as Gaara's body twitched as the water was still charged. Oops, I think I used too much chakra in that last one. He thought. Naruto. He turned to look up at Kakashi who was above him. Stop playing around. Naruto nodded and looked at Hayate who was walking along the wall to reach Gaara. He looked and made a decision. Winner. Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto smirked, but remembered that Sakura was hurt. He cancelled the water jutsus and watched as the water began to drain away. He touched down and picked up the scroll and was about to head to the balcony when he was rammed from behind, several spikes of sand piercing his flesh. Rolling. His back screaming in pain and blood ran from his wounds, he saw sand rising from the cracks in the floor and saw that Gaara was using the wall to stand. What the hell? Naruto thought and wouldn't be surprised that it was the same thought of many around the balconies. Die. Gaara screamed and all the sand he'd summoned up from beneath the tiles formed a spear and raced at Naruto who was shocked that Gaara was alive, much less standing from the last attack. The spear nearly reached him when it was batted aside by Kakashi who landed in front of him. You will not harm my student. He growled. Sensei. I was too slow to stop Neji earlier, because I believed a fellow leaf ninja wouldn't do what he did. But I won't allow you to harm my last student. Why? Gaara rasped. Why do you protect him? He's my student. All my students are precious to me. I would die to protect them. Kakashi said. The others in the balcony tensed and Gaara's sensei wondered if they could escape while Konoha dealt with Gaara. He can prove my existence. Gaara said looking past Kakashi to Naruto. He can give me the fight that will please mother. You'll need to look elsewhere. Kakashi said. Your fight here is done. No. Gaara said as sand rose from the floor to swirl around him. My fight isn't finished until he dies. Kakashi uncovered his Sharingan and his hands formed the seal and soon the arena was filled with the sound of chirping birds. Up in the stands the genin watched. What is that? Lee asked his sensei. That is Kakashi's one and only original jutsu. The Chidori. It is an assassination technique, Guy was saying. He looked over and saw the Suna team was gone. They abandoned their teammate and student. He thought in surprise. Below Gaara attacked and Kakashi was a blur of speed as he dropped the chakra weights and he reappeared right in front of Gaara, his attack buried into the young man's chest. Gaara looked down in shock. So fast, he said as blood came out of his mouth as his lungs filled with blood. In his mind he could hear Shukaku screaming. Kakashi's attack had connected with the one place that the Jinchuriki couldn't regenerate. The heart as Kakashi's attack had destroyed it and cauterized the wounds. Gaara looked at Kakashi's eyes and he looked to see the blonde approaching, a sad look on the boy's face. Naruto took his hand. I'm sorry. Why? Gaara asked confused. Naruto knelt next to him. I could have been like you. He said. In some ways we are similar. We both were sacrifices for others. Naruto said looking at the dying boy on the floor. He wished his sensei hadn't killed, but Kakashi had done it to protect him. I realized it when we fought. We both carry burdens, both were hated. Naruto saw Gaara looking at him. I had people who cared for me, people who helped me in the dark times. Naruto looked to the balcony. You sensei and teammates have left you. Brother, sister, Gaara said and a tear slipped from his eye. They could have helped you, but they were afraid of you, they left you to your darkness. Naruto said. I had old man Hokage, old man Ichiraku and his daughter, later I had Iruka sensei, then I had my teammates. We were broken, misfits, but we connected. Naruto said. You never had that. Even on a team, you were alone. I'm sorry your life was shit. I'm sorry you had to die like this. I won't leave you alone to die. I know what being alone is, and it sucks. Kakashi looked at his student and despite the battle they'd waged, the pair had formed a bond of opponents. Kakashi hated that he'd been forced to kill the boy, but the order had come in earlier, that should the Suna Jinchuriki become unstable, he was to be removed. His attack after the match was the straw and Kakashi wasn't going to hesitate to protect his student. He listened while Naruto spoke to Gaara and he was proud of his student. He saw Naruto's wounds were healing already. I understand you Gaara, and you didn't have to prove your existence. You just needed. I'm cold. Naruto took off his jacket and laid it over the dying boy. I think, in another life, we could have been great friends. Naruto said. A feeling of sadness rolled over him and he wondered if this would be his fate, to die alone, surrounded by enemies. Friends. Cough. Naruto nodded. Yeah, someone to lean on. Who's special? Who you would do everything to fight for and protect, and they would do the same with you. Naruto said and he saw Gaara's eyes dimming. You'd be, my friend. Yeah, Naruto said low as the life left Gaara's eyes and he died, taking with him the one-tailed demon, Shukaku. Naruto bowed his head. This was another person he connected with that died. First Haku who killed Sasuke and Naruto in turn killed, and now Gaara who had been an enemy, but Naruto would call a friend here at the end. Medics arrived and loaded Gaara's body on a stretcher. Stay. I'll arrange for his burial. Naruto said. The medics looked over at the Hokage who nodded his head. Ibiki had just informed him that the Suna team had retreated save for the girl who had advanced. She was in the hotel and from what they heard was sobbing. Naruto stayed with the body as the Hokage explained that they would have a month off to prepare for the finals, which would be a single elimination tournament. Everyone pulled a card from the box that was held by Anko. Choji. 1. Lee. 8. Yash. 10. 6. 3. Shino said holding up his card. 2. From Neji. His tone was bored. F4. Hinata said and shrank back from her cousin's gaze. 7. Naruto said showing his card. Ibiki who was marking them down muttered. Suna chicks got 5. The Hokage nodded as Ibiki held up the brackets. These are the first round fights. You know how this goes, so good luck in preparation. Naruto ignored the Hokage's speech, his eyes were on Neji who was facing Choji in the first round. Naruto knew that the only way to face Neji was to make it to the finals. He looked at Lee who was talking about how his flames of youth would shine. Kakashi put a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Come on. We'll see how Sakura's doing and then we can prepare a funeral for Gaara. Naruto nodded. Would you send word to the girl from his team? He said that she was his sister. Kakashi nodded. I'll take care of it. Thanks. Naruto said and limped out. His wounds were healing from the last attack Gaara hit him with, but there was still some damage. I'll probably be healed by the time I reach the hospital. I hope Sakura-chan is alright. A pair of lavender eyes watched Naruto leave, concern was in them. Naruto stood before the nurse's station, an annoyed look on his face. I just wish to see my teammate. Naruto said. And I want you dead. Guess neither of us get what we want. The woman said. Now leave before I call Anbu and tell them you're upsetting the patients. Naruto clenched his fist. I'll never be accepted. Naruto thought and turned to go, stopping at seeing Sakura's mother, Kimura Haruno, standing there. Haruno's slap. Naruto's greeting was stopped by the strike to his face from the enraged mother. It's your fault, she said. Stay away from my daughter, you monster. Naruto lowered his head and the woman stormed away from him and he closed his eye and forced the tear back, before he rushed away. She's right. It is my fault. Naruto thought and he was gone. Kakashi arrived 5 minutes later and looked around. He looked at the nurse. Excuse me, what room is Sakura Haruno in please? I'm her sensei. Second floor, room 2210. The desk nurse said and went back to her paperwork, happy that the Kyuubi brat was gone before a man like Hitaki showed up. Of course she thought a great ninja like him would deal with the demon brat. XX. Kakashi entered room 2210 and saw Kimura Haruno sitting next to her daughter's bed. Sakura was still unconscious. I'm surprised Naruto isn't here, Kakashi said. Kimura remained silent as she fussed with her daughter's hair. Kakashi took up the seat across from her. He left before me. I had to file my report with the Hokage. Kimura sighed. I chased him away. Kakashi stood. Why? It's his fault she's hurt. I don't want him around her anymore. First she loses an eye and now this. Next time she'll be dead. Kakashi turned to go. I hope I'm here when you tell Sakura what you've decided. He left to find his other student. XX. Kakashi was not usually one to show his emotions, but right now if he wasn't wearing his mask people would see him looking frantic as he rushed all over Konoha looking for his blonde-haired student. He checked their apartment, the ramen stand, the training ground, the bridge and the park. He then searched the theaters, the academy and the Hokage tower. Each place he checked and didn't find Naruto. His fear spiked. Come on Naruto. Don't let people's stupidity get to you. Kakashi thought. Every damn time we make progress. He collided with someone and was on his feet again. Inoichi. Kakashi. What's wrong? Inoichi Yamanaka asked, seeing the usually laid-back Jonin looking frazzled. Have you seen Naruto? Naruto. No. Why? Inoichi watched as Kakashi ran off. Inoichi got a feeling and went after him. XX. While Kakashi was searching for him, Naruto sat atop the head of the fourth Hokage looking over the village that had been his home. His mind a whirlwind of everything. Kimura Haruno's slap mark faded from his cheek as his healing factor took care of that, making just another memory. His mind wasn't even on her words or the words of the nurse. His mind was on Sakura and Neji's actions. How the Hyuga pushed through his pain and still managed to hit a desperation attack on Sakura that gave him the win and nearly killed Sakura. I need to learn about the Hyuga style and develop a counter. He thought. Sakura-chan found a way. He thought about her fight and knew that despite not wanting to admit it, Sakura had given the Hyuga too many openings. He would be the first to admit that he was depressed. He thought that Sakura's mom would be different, but the slap confirmed that she saw him as the monster, not the boy. He stood up deciding to see if Kakashi had made arrangements for Gaara's funeral. He was looking over the village on the edge of the head when he heard. Naruto. Don't jump. Naruto turned and his head at his sensei. Huh. Whatever Kimura told you, it's not worth jumping off the monument for. Kakashi said, slowly edging towards Naruto. I wasn't going to jump. Naruto said. He saw Inoichi huffing as he caught up to Kakashi. Hey Inoichi-san. The blonde said to the older blonde. Just come away from the ledge Naruto. Kakashi said, holding a hand up to his student. Naruto walked towards his sensei. I wasn't going to jump sensei. I was just up here thinking. Naruto said. Once Naruto was well enough from the ledge, Kakashi surprised Naruto, pulling him to him and hugging him. Don't scare me like that. Naruto looked at Inoichi, who shrugged, then left the teacher and student alone. What happened? Naruto asked. Is Sakura-chan alright? She's asleep. Kakashi said. What happened to you? Naruto looked away. Stupid nurse wouldn't let me in, and then. Himura said something to you. Kakashi said. Naruto shrugged. She's just worried about Sakura. It's more than that. Kakashi said. Naruto shrugged. Did you take care of a funeral for Gaara? He asked to change the subject. Yes. I sent a Chunin with the note for the girl. Kakashi said. His sister. Naruto said, and he wondered if anyone would be there for him. Despite the concern from Kakashi and Sakura, he wondered if they would leave him like Gaara's team left him, to die alone in enemy territory. Come on. You can see Sakura, and then we'll need to start talking about your training. They walked. Naruto thought about it. Sensei, what do you know about the Hyuga and their taijutsu style? XX. Naruto entered Sakura's hospital room and stopped as Kimura glared at him. Kakashi's hand on his shoulder gave him the confidence to go forward. He looked at Sakura and then at Kakashi. The doctors say she'll be fine. You helped save her when you performed CPR. Kakashi had been reprimanded by the Hokage after everyone had cleared out for his handling of the medic Nin's refusal of help. The tail end was calmer, but it stuck in his mind. Flashback. I will deal with this, Kakashi. You see to your students, and I will make sure that none of the medical staff pull something like that again. They shouldn't pull it to begin with. Kakashi said, a note of disrespect in his voice. The Hokage sighed. I didn't say anything, because you did right, but I wish you would have waited for my order to do so. Kakashi nodded his head that he understood. See to your students. Dismissed. End flashback. Tomorrow I am petitioning to have Sakura removed from ninja duties. Kimura said, looking at Naruto and Kakashi. It's obvious it's far too dangerous, and I refuse to allow my child to continue this nonsense. She is an adult and the choice is hers, not yours. Kakashi said. The minute she passed her exam and put on that headband, she became an adult. That's nonsense. She's 16. I'm her mother. Kimura said. Kakashi shook his head. I will not argue this with you here. But you will find that you have very little say over Sakura's life. He looked at Naruto. Come on. We have things to do still, and after I drop you off at home I'll find Raku and see how she is. Naruto looked like he wanted to say something, but nodded as he remembered that their masked teammate had hurt her ribs. Tell her I hope she's alright. Naruto said as they walked the corridor of the hospital. I will. You rest. It's been a long couple of days and I'll leave you a couple of scrolls to read. Kakashi said. XX. Kakashi sighed as he entered the ramen stand. Naruto had taken a hot shower and had fallen asleep as soon as he stretched out on the couch. Kakashi. Tsuki said in greeting. What can I get you? The ramen chef asked. The Jonin noticed Katetsu and Azuma working the stand and smirked. I was hoping I could have a moment of Ayame's time. The cook nodded and motioned to the back. Kakashi found the girl sitting at the desk doing the record keeping. He saw her reach for a paper on the far edge of the desk and wince. You should be resting. Kakashi said, getting her to jump and wince in surprise. I am resting. Those two are working the shop and running orders. Kakashi noticed her hand was wrapped. I didn't know you hurt your hand as well. I didn't. The stupid marker Naruto used won't wash off. If he stops by I can't let him see it. Ayame said. Dad's going to tell him I'm on errands, but if I run into him until it's gone, I'm just going to tell him I burned my hand on a pot. And your ribs. A crate fell on me while I was stocking the shelves. Ayame said. I care about the boy, but he's not always observant. Kakashi chuckled. He's gotten better. Ayame nodded. I heard about Sakura. She started. She'll make a full recovery. Naruto's going to be headhunting in the finals. Kakashi said and told her about the boy's desire to learn about the Hyuga. Do you want me to stay out of sight? Ayame asked. As Raku, for now. You might want to show up for the finals and show him your support. Ayame nodded. Dad's mad I got hurt, until I explained to him what happened. Now he's concerned about me doing ninja work. Kakashi sighed. Parents. He muttered. He waved off Ayame's look. Just take it easy and heal up. Knowing Naruto, he'll be in a couple of times unless he trains himself into the ground. Ayame nodded. She knew the blonde well enough. I'll go and see Sakura tomorrow. Watch out for her mother. She's anti-ninja right now and blames Naruto for what happened. Ayame nodded, deciding to wear her ninja outfit to keep her identity hidden. It's like the worst kept secret, but truthfully only Dad, Kakashi and the Hokage know who Raku is. Most the students that I graduated with are dead. She sighed at that depressing thought. I just hope my new team ends up better than my last. Close your eyes, focus inwards. Makoto Uchiha said. She'd arrived at the Hitaki Uzumaki apartment to find the blonde studying a scroll this morning. But, no, you are skilled enough as is. You need to learn to control your temper as well about the proper use of the Sharingan. Naruto looked at Kakashi, who nodded. I've been cutting corners in teaching you. The silver-haired Jonin admitted. What about Sakura-chan? He asked. I will work with her once she's fully healed. There is some stress in proper instruction. Makoto said. She'd heard about Haruno's mother's reaction and was not happy with the woman. It had taken a lot of willpower and control and a threat from the Hokage to keep Makoto from having a go at the civilian woman. And Hitaki holding me back. The last Uchiha woman thought. Now this is how we do it. XX. Hospital. Sakura groaned as her body told her that the morphine was wearing off. Where am I? You're in the hospital, stupid. What the hell? Sakura blinked as her inner self was back. If Naruto-kun wouldn't have saved me, I'd be dead. Sakura thought as she opened her eye. Her Sharingan eye felt weird and she reached up, groaning. Sakura dear. Can you hear me? Mom. What the? Yeah, I can hear you, Mom. She said as her hand touched her face. Don't. Her mother said, stopping her. Why is my eye covered by gauze? Where's my eye patch? I had them do that, dear. I also would like for them to remove that eye. Sakura's normal eye snapped over towards her mother with a glare. Get out. Dear, be reasonable. Once you can leave this place, you will go to the tower and resign from being a ninja. It's far too. Get thee out of my room. Sakura roared. Don't you take that tone with me, young lady. It's bad enough you went out and got hurt, but to be on the same team as. The door opened and the masked head of Raku poked in. I knew I heard a familiar yell. Raku. Sakura bit out. Would you kindly ask the doctor to remove my mother from the room and then remove her from the visitation list? I'd ask you to do it, but your ribs. Raku nodded and slipped back out. You can't do this. I'm your mother. Kimura Haruno said. And I'm a ninja. The moment I got my headband, I became an adult. Kimura shook her head. You're being foolish. The door opened and a pair of Chunin entered. Is there a problem here? The first asked. Yes. Remove Mrs. Haruno from the hospital and take her off the approved visitor list. The only ones I wish to see are my teammates and my sensei and friends. The second Chunin moved towards Kimura. You can't do this. Ma'am, this is a ninja hospital. Your daughter is a ninja and makes her own decisions on care and. This is not over. Kimura was escorted out and Raku slipped back into the room. Sakura sighed as she leaned back. I thought she accepted. She said in a low voice. Sakura. Raku began. Oh, sorry. How are you? Raku chuckled behind her mask. I'm not the one in a hospital bed. My ribs are doing fine. I have another treatment, and they should be better by the end of the week. Then I'm on light duty for the week after still. It's our advantage over the civilians is that with chakra healing wounds can be sped up. Sakura remained quiet for a moment. Do you know where my patch is? Raku checked the closet and the drawers and pulled out a neon orange eye patch. She showed it to Sakura, who smiled and accepted it. She peeled the gauze off and kept her Sharingan eye closed while she put the eye patch on. Better? Raku asked with a hint of amusement. Much. How long have I been here? 2 days so far. Raku said, taking a seat. Has Naruto been here? Sakura asked. Raku nodded. Kakashi sensei said he was chased off by your mother. Sakura scowled. He and sensei will probably be by after their training this afternoon. Raku said. Sakura nodded. She was worried about the blonde. She'd been feeling his emotions while unconscious and it bothered her how they ran the gambit. Do you know how everyone did after I lost? Well, sensei stopped by my place and told me that you nearly beat the Hyuga prodigy, but lost in the end. Let's see. Shino Aburame beat a Konoha nin named Tsurugi. She looked nervous. Naruto won his match. He beat Gaara. Sakura's eye widened. Kakashi sensei said he killed Gaara when he tried to attack Naruto after the match. The pink-haired girl sighed in relief. Raku continued. Your friend Ino had a draw with a Oto nin, the Suna Kunoichi beat Kiba, and that bun-haired girl from Team 9 beat the Nara from your class to finish the tournament. Sakura absorbed this. How are they doing the third part of the exam? A single elimination tournament. Sakura waited and rolled her hand for Raku to go on. The other girl laughed. Sorry, but I have no clue. Kakashi didn't tell me. You'll have to ask him when he and Naruto visit. Sakura sighed. Any clue as to when I can get out of here? Sadly no. You'll need to speak with your doctor once they get to you. Seems that some of the other competitors are in worse shape. Sakura sighed and looked out the window. Where are you, Naruto-kun? XX. Training ground. Naruto groaned as Kakashi smirked. After their time with Makoto, Kakashi had dragged him to the training ground to teach him counters to Hyuga techniques. I hate you. Kakashi laughed. I know where you live, sensei. Kakashi chuckled. I'll tell Makoto that you moan her name in your sleep. Kakashi went still. Naruto. The blonde laughed. Are you done pulverizing me? For now. Let's go see if Sakura's woken up. He saw the change in his student and put a hand on his shoulder. Her mother has no say in her being a ninja and she can't keep me and you from her room. It's a ninja hospital, civilians have no say in its running. Naruto nodded and allowed Kakashi to shushun them away. Hospital. Hey Sakura-chan. The blonde bounded into the room with an energy that Sakura hadn't seen since the death of Sasuke. She smiled as he stopped before grabbing her in a hug. You can hug me, she said, and for the first time in days they both relaxed as Naruto sat on the edge of her bed and being careful of the wires and tubes hugged her. Sakura rested her head on his shoulder and felt whole. Do I get one of those? Kakashi asked. Sakura and Naruto exchanged looks and Naruto launched himself at the silver-haired Jonin, whose eye widened and staggered as Naruto hugged him. Not from you, goof. Kakashi said as Naruto let him go. Kakashi walked up and put a hand on Sakura's shoulder. You scared us. I'm sorry. Next time hit him and make sure he's unconscious before you add more insults. Sakura nodded and she realized that Kakashi and Naruto were her new family. They each sported a Sharingan eye and the day Sasuke died had reforged them as a team. I'll be more careful next time. Sakura said. Raku just left. She's got a treatment for her ribs. Kakashi nodded. She told me you told her the results of the matches after I left. However, she said you didn't tell her the third exam matchups. Kakashi scratched the back of his head and Sakura swore their sensei had been spending too much time around Naruto for him to copy that action. Well, did Raku tell you it's? Yes, a single elimination tournament. Now spill. Sakura said. She'd been poked and prodded for an hour after Raku had left. Well, Naruto is scheduled against Rock Lee. Sakura blinked. Bushy brow. Naruto supplied and Sakura nodded in thanks for the reference. Lee's teammate Tenten takes on the Suna Kunoichi, Temari. Sakura saw Naruto look down. What? Gaara's sister. Her other brother and sensei abandoned her here. Naruto said sadly. Kurenai's students Shino and Hinata are facing off in the first round and then Choji, Ino's teammate, takes on the bastard that put you here. Naruto growled. I swear, Sakura-chan, I'll get him. Sakura panicked and put a finger to his mouth. I want you to be very careful around him, Naruto-kun. Neji is still recovering himself. Between the damage you did to him and Naruto putting him through the statue. Naruto hung his head. I apologized to Guy about that, but he was between me and Sakura-chan. Sakura took his hand and gave it a squeeze. Kakashi then told her of the training he was putting Naruto in and that once she was able she was to work with Makoto and the Sharingan. But, Sakura said looking at Naruto. It'll be fine, Sakura-chan. Naruto told her. Kakashi noticed Sakura's mother was absent and would speak with her later. For now he had 2 students to prepare training for. You don't have to, sensei. I mean, focus on Naruto's training. Sakura said. I won't be able to do anything but light training and that won't be until near the end of the month. Sakura said sadly. I will not abandon my students. Kakashi said. It was times like this he missed his. Yeah, and just you wait till you can train full time again, Sakura-chan. Makoto's got some wicked things to teach you about the Sharingan as well. Way better than Kakashi-sensei and his cutting corners. Kakashi lightly swatted Naruto on the back of the head even as the blonde grinned at him. They spoke for over an hour before the nurse kicked them out saying Sakura had therapy session. Bye, Sakura-chan. Naruto said and was about to go, but his pink-haired teammate grabbed his hand. Sensei, could you give us a minute? Sakura asked. Kakashi looked from one to the other and nodded. Sakura waited until the door was closed. Sakura-chan? Naruto asked. She motioned for him to come closer and once he was she leaned in and kissed him, putting all her fears, concerns and her love for him into it. The stadium was packed, standing room only. Naruto was on the arena floor and his eye landed on the Suna Kunoichi Temari. He thought back to when the last time he saw her was Gaara's funeral. He thought sadly. Flashback. The darkened sky shed its tears in the form of rain. The small funeral had only 4 people: Kakashi, Naruto, the Hokage, and Temari. Naruto looked at the urn that held Gaara's remains and he turned to Temari. I am sorry for your loss. Temari, whose face was behind a veil, her head bowed, spoke. Her voice was gruff and Naruto knew she'd been crying since the exam. Why do you care? Your sensei killed him. Because he was like me, alone. He was sacrificed so others could live. If I didn't have my precious people, I might had turned out like him. When we fought, we came to understand one another. Temari remained quiet. I too hold a demon. I know some of what Gaara's life must have been like. Hated, ignored, assassination attempts. Temari's head came up. But I used all that to help me, to make me stronger and to protect my friends. Why did you and the others leave? Naruto asked and he saw her shoulders shake and knew she was crying. The demon Gaara held was Shukaku, the one-tailed sand demon. Temari said as she looked at the urn. Our father used our mother and implanted Shukaku into Gaara. It wasn't that the demon was attacking us or even a threat. It had been sealed into a teapot long ago. She saw the look on Naruto's face. My father wanted a weapon, but he could not control Gaara, and soon everyone feared my little brother, even me and Kankuro. She made a choking sound. He was a little boy and everyone ran away from him in fear. Naruto handed her a tissue. He had some in his jacket, in case he himself would have cried. Temari seemed to harden as if making a decision. I need to tell your Hokage about a plot to bring down Konoha. I need to tell him soon as part. Why? Why would you betray your village? Naruto asked. Temari's eyes above the veil looked at Naruto. Because you, the supposed enemy, have shown my brother more kindness than his own village and family. I am ashamed of myself for my own actions toward Gaara. She turned her head. I will make things right. She said lowly. Naruto wondered how she planned to do that. The Hokage gave a service for Gaara and when it was over he presented the urn to Temari. She saw it was well made and sported the Suna symbol. End flashback. Naruto looked at the other competitors, his eye resting on Neji, and he knew he would have to wait for his chance to avenge Sakura. He listed as Genma explained the rules. Naruto had learned from Kakashi that Hayate had been killed a week ago, and with the information Temari had given them, they had a clue as to who did it. His eyes went to the stands where he saw Sakura sitting with the masked Makoto. She waved to him and he smiled. On Sakura's other side was Raku in mask. Naruto still hadn't caught up with his new teammate. He was hoping after the exams the 3 of them could sit and really talk. Genma finished his speech and Naruto sighed. Sasuke should be here. This would be his time to shine. He thought as he touched his covered eye. I'll win for you, Sasuke. And Sakura-chan, and I will kill your brother for you. Believe it. The arena was cleared as Choji was left with Neji. Naruto watched as the prodigy decimated Choji and it was over in less than a minute. Naruto sighed as they carried Choji away. His gaze went to Neji, who was looking at him and sneering. You'll get yours, you bastard. Naruto silently vowed. Shino and Hinata went next and it became obvious that the two were just using taijutsu. Shino however made a mistake and a Juken strike put him on his back and Hinata was declared the winner. Next match saw Temari taking on Tenten. The two fought, but the moment Tenten went for weapons she lost as Temari used her wind jutsus to subdue and then beat Tenten, who she knocked out with a fan's strike. Naruto looked at Lee. They walked to the arena side by side. Don't hold back, Naruto. You either bushy brow. The pair stood across from one another and waited for Genma to announce the start of the fight. The arm came down and they both moved with blinding speed. XX. In the stands, Guy looked at Kakashi. You've worked his speed to even greater heights. Kakashi nodded. Naruto's got the stamina to learn anything, and with his special ability his bones and muscles tear and become stronger overnight. He watched as the pair went at it with taijutsu. Everything Naruto learned he did so without the Sharingan. He gave Guy an eye smile. Naruto said this match against Lee is his proof that hard work is greater than those who are given the title of prodigy or genius. Guy had tears in his eyes and Kakashi realized what he said, and before he could protest, Guy pulled him into a tight hug. Everyone around them looked away as the sunset genjutsu formed and Kakashi blamed this on his lack of. Perhaps I could find something to read. Maybe raid Naruto's manga collection. He thought as Guy screamed about. flames of youth, and Kakashi's sweat dropped as a person ahead of them told them to shut up and, weirdos. XX. Naruto back-flipped away, his feet hit the wall and he used the wall to springboard at Lee, who ducked. Naruto landed with a handspring and flipped to his feet, missing connecting with Lee's jaw by a hair's breadth. You are very skilled, Naruto. But I must win, for I too have to fight Neji. Lee said as he launched a flurry of right and left punches. Naruto avoided them, some barely, and he kicked Lee in the chest, backing him up and giving Naruto a bit of room. I'm afraid this is it, Lee. You are my friend, but Neji has earned my hatred. He attacked someone very precious to me and tried to kill her. My claim trumps your friendly rivalry. He jumped up, his hands blurring through a series of hand seals, and he spat a series of fireballs at Lee. Lee, take him off. Guy yelled. Rock Lee landed and looked at where his sensei was. Do it. Lee reached down and unhooked his ankle warmers and dropped them from his place on the wall. The crater they left told everyone these weren't simple weights. Naruto's sweat dropped. Glad he didn't connect. With the weights added, it would have felt like being hit by concrete blocks. Of course, this gave Lee a greater range of speed, and Naruto managed to block, but his arms were starting to feel like they were being hit by steel. Naruto. Kakashi called. And everyone wondered what the cycloptic Jonin was going to say. Zero them out. Naruto ducked, dodged and leapt into the air. He touched the bands around his wrists and ankles and his belt, and suddenly he felt like he could fly. He rocketed towards Lee with a kick. Lee dodged, but the trench Naruto dug was deep. So you two were wearing weights? Lee said as they fought, blocking and dodging one another's attacks. Yep. Sensei had me wearing weights since we came back from our mission to Wave. Lee leapt. Leaf Hurricane. Naruto's forearms blocked, but he knew he couldn't take too many of those. He created a dozen shadow clones and set them on Lee while he prepared his trap attack. XX. Sakura was tense as she watched Naruto fighting Lee. She watched as both dropped their weights. They are so fast. Naruto must have really worked hard to get this quick. Raku said from next to Sakura. The pink-haired girl hoped he would be alright. Why doesn't he use the Sharingan? She thought as Naruto sent a horde of clones at Lee and then throwing smoke bombs and obscuring the area. Behind her she was poked and turned to see Ino. Hey, what's he doing? Ino gestured to the smoke-filled arena. Not a clue. Sakura said, turning to look once more. XX. Lee finally got the better of the clones and he panted as he looked around for the original Naruto, but of the blonde there was no sign as the smoke cleared. He blinked a second before he was pulled under the ground, his head stopping just above the ground. Naruto was standing there. Headhunter Jutsu. I learned that from Kakashi sensei. Give up, Lee, you're trapped and I could punt your head from your shoulders. Lee struggled for a bit, but he was stuck. Very well, Naruto. Proctor, I yield. Naruto reached down and pulled Lee from the trap and smiled. I'm sorry for resorting to jutsus, Lee, but I need to put Neji in his place. Lee nodded and patted his shoulder as Genma announced Naruto the winner. They rejoined the others, while Lee went to get checked over and then he'd watched the rest from the stands. Naruto looked at the remaining three, his eyes landed on Neji and they both knew that they would meet in the finals. Neji would call it fate, Naruto called it and kicking waiting to happen. The intermission before the semifinals didn't seem to last long as the people filled the stadium up once more. During that time Naruto had found Sakura and they reconnected, staring into one another's Sharingan eyes. You didn't sleep much either. Sakura stated. Naruto nodded. Kakashi-sensei says he's going to tie me down after this and make me sleep. Sakura nodded, hearing the same. The time apart had been hard on both, dreams filled with the death of Sasuke which morphed into watching the other die. Sakura while at the hospital had been forced to sleep with the aid of drugs, but even that wasn't restful. Up close Naruto's eye was shadowed and she leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. Be careful, she said. I will be. Naruto promised. Just 2 more fights. You better get back to your seat. Both teens turned to see Kakashi leaning against the wall. The crowd is getting back. There, Jonin-sensei said. Sakura held on to Naruto for a bit more. Don't do anything stupid, she said. Hey, it's me, Naruto countered. That's what I mean, Sakura said with a smile to take the sting out. She'd been worried about him the whole time and she was frightened what Neji might do to him. Naruto watched until she was out of sight by taking the stairs, before he sighed and looked at Kakashi. Let's do this. Kakashi nodded. He refused to go back near Guy and planned to stick close to Naruto until he was done with the finals. XX. Naruto sighed as he waited for the proctor of the exam. He looked at Kakashi. Is he related to you, sensei? Kakashi gave Naruto a light rap on the side of the head. Brat, he said with hidden affection. He smiled behind his mask. Below in the arena, the prodigy of the Hyuga was fighting the heir of the Hyuga, and Hinata was doing surprisingly well. Naruto remembered her as a shy, weird, stuttering girl from the academy, but here she was showing a greater skill. Well, she was until Neji showed he was more skilled and tore her apart. The strike he delivered had Naruto growling, and it was Kakashi keeping him in his place with a hand on his shoulder that saved Neji at this moment. The proctor called the match even as medics tended to Hinata, her sensei, incensed at how Neji tried to kill her. Bastards really alienating allies, Naruto said, and Kakashi could only nod. He looked to the stands where Guy did not look pleased with his student, and he knew that Neji would not be making Chunin if he survived the end of the tournament. Temari looked at Naruto and shook her head. She approached the rail, and after looking once more at Naruto, then at Neji, she made a decision. She leapt down and approached the Jonin in charge. Genma listened to her and nodded. There will be a 15-minute intermission for the final match as Temari has withdrawn from the tournament. He announced. The amplification jutsu carried his voice to all corners of the stadium. In the cage's booth, the cage looked displeased as his eyes narrowed. It seems your daughter has decided to withdraw rather than face either Neji or Naruto. Sarutobi said. Yes. She will be punished later. The cage hissed. Don't be too hard on her, old friend. Hiruzen said in a consolatory tone. The cage said nothing, but stood. I need to use the restroom, he said as man in the crowd went to get something to eat or drink before the finals that many were certain would be something special, as rumors had sped around the village at light speed at animosity between the Hyuga prodigy and the demon child. XX. Sakura had rushed to Naruto the moment the intermission had been announced. She reached him and engulfed him in a hug, at first feeling him seize up, then relax. It's okay, Sakura-chan, he said as his own arms wrapped around her waist. The pink-haired girl said nothing. The two seized up when another figure appeared. Miko, Naruto started to say but covered his mouth with a gloved hand. Don't say my name aloud, the last Uchiha female said. Naruto nodded. The muffled, sorry, and she let go. During all of this, Sakura had not let go. Kakashi looked on and the two teens stiffened as another figure approached. It Guy. Kakashi. A moment. The usually loud and boisterous Guy Maeda said. He looked at Naruto a moment. I do not condone the behavior of my student. He's going down, Naruto said. Even as Sakura squeezed him tighter in her arms, her head was pressed to his shoulder. Guy looked at Naruto for what felt like an eternity. Good luck, he said and turned away. I won't need luck, but Neji will. I am not going to hold back against him, Naruto said, and Guy stopped. He looked back over his shoulder at Hitaki, then at Naruto. His eyes were emotionless. Do what you must, he said, and was gone. That was strange, Kakashi said, and Makoto nodded at this. I've never seen Guy this subdued. Naruto didn't care. He held on to Sakura. After the intermission, Neji Hyuga was going to get the mother of all kickings, and no one was going to stand in his way. XX. Sakura asked Kakashi if she could stay with him and watch. He agreed. He knew she was worried for Naruto, and Makoto had told him how depressed his pink-haired student had been during their time apart. The final round is about to begin, Genma announced, his voice carrying around the arena. Naruto stood on one side of him, his back to the crowd and Sakura. Across from him stood Neji Hyuga, who sneered at Naruto while Genma went over the rules with them once more, reminding them when he said stop they were to stop. Fate has decreed that I will be the victor. Neji. Fate is for. I'll kick your, and if I'm in a generous mood I might let you live for what you did to Sakura-chan and your cousin. Neji snorted. They were weak. And you're a moron, Naruto said as Genma raised his arm then lowered it, signaling the start of the match. Neji came in with several strikes, but Naruto managed to duck under and avoid them. Not impressed, the blonde said with a hint of disdain. His uncovered eye narrowed as he leapt over Neji and tried for a reverse kick, but the Byakugan eyes of the Hyuga prodigy saw it and he leaned forward into a roll. Naruto landed and looked at him while Neji frowned. You're like your teammate, why don't you uncover your eye? Naruto snorted. Because I don't handicap myself by relying on bloodlines. Neji frowned and came in once more. I know you're fast due to your match against Lee. Gee, guess you can learn. Naruto said, avoiding contact with Neji. Kakashi spent the time teaching him about the Hyugas, and he knew even a glancing strike could prove disastrous. Putting some distance, Naruto created several Kage Bunshin and had them go at Neji while he prepared several things. The clones attacked using shuriken and kunai, and a couple went in close hoping to swarm Neji. It forced him to use the heavenly spin rotation to protect himself and unveiling something he didn't want to use. Naruto said. Isn't that something that only the main branch of the Hyuga clan are supposed to know? He wagged a finger. Naughty. Looks like someone's been in the cookie jar. Naruto created more clones to replace those destroyed and sent them in. He then leapt into the air. Water style. Water dragon jutsu. He roared and sent the water serpent at Neji, who used the rotation once more. The people in the stands watched as the battle raged on, many surprised at the skill the blonde was showing. XX. In the Kage's booth, the Kage narrowed his eyes at what he was seeing. His plans had been altered with the death of the Uchiha, but Orochimaru swore he could still pull it off. He would find a suitable substitute here still. What do you think so far, old friend? The Hokage asked. I'm not sure of what to make of the blonde. What clan is he from? Orochimaru asked while maintaining his disguise. He's an orphan who has been trained by Kakashi Hatake. Ah, the Sharingan user. Orochimaru said. If he could, he would have taken Hatake, but his Sharingan was malfunctioning and wouldn't be worth the effort to capture. I'd say the Hyuga will win. He blinked when the Hokage chuckled. Many would, but I believe Naruto will show them what hard work can do over that of a prodigy. The Kage swore there was a reprimand in there somewhere. But he can't know that I replaced that fool of a Suna leader. Orochimaru thought and decided to say nothing as he turned his gaze to the arena once more. He had ordered the attack to begin with the end of this match once the winner was announced. The death of the One Tail put a crimp in things, but it's still possible. He knew his followers would use the slaves as fodder first. He smothered a laugh and watched as the Hyuga destroyed the clones. Thus far he hadn't really seen anything about the blonde to impress him. That was about to change. I just have 2 words to say to you, Neji. Naruto said, flooding the arena floor with over 500 clones. And what would that be? Neji asked. He kept destroying the clones and wasn't impressed by the blonde, who seemed to be a one-trick pony. Bang baby. The clones set off a chain reaction as they started to explode. Each explosion sent Neji flying at a different clone that would explode, making him a living pinball. When the last clone was done, Neji was rocketing at Naruto, who spun and connected with a spinning back hook kick that drove Neji face first into the ground. Neji struggled to push himself up, his arms shaking as he got his knees under him. His clothes singed and he had a trickle of blood from the corner of his mouth. He wheezed and coughed. How? He wiped the blood away with the back of his hand. You and everyone else are going by outdated information. Naruto said as he stood well out of range. But I can understand that. No one's bothered to know me. Until our mission to wave my own teammates didn't either. In the stand, Sakura had tears slip from her eye. Makoto in her disguise put a comforting hand on her shoulder. In the competitor's box, Kakashi looked down. He knew Naruto had been badly hurt by the way he'd treated him before the wave mission. But my team, my sensei saw me during that mission. We lost a teammate. Naruto said. We had to grow up fast then. Sakura lost her possible boyfriend, and I lost my first friend. Someone I considered my brother. Does this have a point? Neji said, trying to rise, but his body wasn't working with him still and his legs were too weak and he fell back to the ground, his arms supporting him for a moment. You hold the death of your father against everyone except the one really responsible. Naruto said. You blame Hinata, who was 5 years old. You should blame your father and the Cloud Ninja that caused the incident. You should blame the Hyuga Council of Elders for they made their decision. Blame your uncle for being the clan leader and the one person your father loved. Neji scowled. You, like everyone else, never notices me. But then you, like everyone with a Kekkei Genkai, don't see the forest for the trees. Know this, Neji Hyuga. I have a Sharingan eye given to me by my dying teammate, yet I just destroyed you without using it. Naruto turned and walked away. Call it. He's not getting up. Genma counted and Neji wasn't able to get off his knees, his head was bent and his arms shaking with fatigue. Winner. Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto looked back at Neji. I give you your life this time. Learn that you are stronger for the people around you. And use your eyes to see the truth, not the self-delusions you've used to lie to yourself with. Naruto continued on up the stairs where he was met by Kakashi at the top of the stairs, who gave him an eye grin and put a hand on his shoulder. Naruto gave a soft smile and both turned, and Naruto caught Sakura, who was crying and babbling as she squeezed him tightly. He patted her back and spoke low so only she could hear. Sensei, can we leave? Kakashi was about to respond when the far wall exploded and in the distance sirens could be heard. Around the stadium civilians were being put to sleep via a jutsu. Prepare to fight, Kakashi said as they saw an explosion in the cage's booth indicating a smoke bomb had been used. Protect the civilians and each other, Kakashi ordered. He looked around and saw Makoto was already killing Suna and Oto Ninja. Try to keep close to her, he said. Kakashi leapt away, his attention was on getting to the cage's booth. Sakura, let's do this, the pink-haired girl said. Are you really ready for this, Sakura-chan? He asked. She looked at him and nodded. I'm not 100%, but I can still fight. She touched his cheek under his Hitai-8 that covered his Sharingan eye. Naruto nodded and they started killing Suna and Sound Ninja that went after the crowd. XX. Kakashi stabbed an Oto Nin in the throat and kicked the corpse off his kunai. He heard a sound and turned to see Guy had covered his back. Guy. Later, Kakashi. We need to get to the Hokage, Guy said, dropping the facade and becoming the ninja he was truly known for. The pair of Jonin dropped their usual playful natures and became the killing machines that their legends were built on. XX. Temari looked on as her people continued with the plan and she saw the cage wasn't her father. He's probably dead as well. She did something she thought she'd never do. Her battle fan swiped and she sent blades of wind at the Suna Nin coming through the gap in the stadium wall, killing them instantly. She leapt into the air and used her fan to surf a low air current to carry her up to the roof of the cage booth. Ah! Temari Sabuku. Orochimaru hissed. You nearly ruined my plans, girl, giving the boy a free pass to the finals. Temari said nothing even as a barrier went up around them. She ignored the Oto Nin and looked at the Sannin before her. My father is dead, isn't he? Orochimaru shrugged. The fool tried to change our deal. I killed him while he was on his way here and took his place. Temari scowled. It was your plan to use my little brother as a weapon. Orochimaru laughed and winced as the Hokage elbowed him in the chest and leapt away. He scowled, but they were trapped in his barrier, so he deemed he was in no danger and answered her. Your father planned on using Gaara as a weapon the moment he sealed Shukaku in his infant son. His foolishness was not doing it properly and then fearing his weapon. I was going to use his Jinchuriki properly. You're mad, Orochimaru, Hiruzen said as he shed his robes to reveal his battle armor and stepped closer to Temari. The snake Sannin laughed. And what do you think works? Treating them with love and allowing them to grow up as normal children. Tell me how that's worked for the Kyuubi container. Hiruzen narrowed his eyes. You ruined my village's chances of gaining honor again. You used my brother as a weapon that resulted in his death. You killed my father. Like that was a loss. When was the last time he was a father? Orochimaru said with a sneer. Temari had reached her limit and went to attack the Sannin, who laughed and dodged her attack and with a simple flick of his arm sent her flying back towards the Hokage. A mere genin as a protector. How the mighty have fallen, Sarutobi-sensei. Orochimaru said with a taunting smirk. I'll enjoy killing you, old man. The girl is just going to be collateral damage. The third Hokage took up a stance, putting himself between Temari and Orochimaru, knowing that this was nothing more than a delaying tactic as Orochimaru was stronger than him. He had been the last time they fought, and that was in a spar when Orochimaru was his student. I just hope my village can survive my mistakes. XX. Fire style. Phoenix Flame Jutsu. Naruto said, and the shape of a phoenix emerged from the fire and raced at the Sand and Sound Ninja. Sakura used her twin Kama and was practically dancing around the blonde and killing any that came close while he was performing long-range attacks. Naruto landed and in his hands were the bladed tonfa that Kakashi had been training him with since he bought them. Naruto went into motion with the capoeira style Kakashi had taught him, and with Sakura they were twin angels of death. Sand and Oto Nin shocked at being killed by Genin. The reports they had were outdated and they cursed their spy for his failure to learn about this. Sakura-chan. Look. Sakura looked where Naruto had pointed with one of his tonfa blades and saw Ino and the other genin being backed into a corner by sheer numbers. Shall we? He asked. Let's. Sakura said and sheathed her weapons and linked her hands to form a cup. Naruto took a running start, and once his foot was in her grasp she heaved him upwards and Naruto landed with room to spare on the second floor seating of the stadium seating. Hey guys, mind if we cut in? Wah. The Sunanin asked before the blade of a tonfa erupted from his neck. Sorry, couldn't hear you. Mind speaking up? Naruto said as he began his assault. Hiba and Shino stepped up and began their attacks. Shikamaru used his shadow possession to hold 8 targets in place and Choji turned himself into a rolling boulder and flattened them. Ino stood back, fear on her face, and it was evident that she wasn't prepared for this kind of fighting. She looked on as her teammates and fellow genin were very effective. Sakura joined them, having used chakra to boost her leap, and her kama crossed and the blade severed the sound ninja's head. Ino bent over and lost her lunch. She'd been saved from killing of any kind up till now. She looked at Sakura, her eye patch showing how much different her friend had become in the last several months. They all stopped when the last ninja fell and many of them were panting. Naruto looked around and gave orders. Hiba, Shino, Ino, start getting these civilians out of here. Shikamaru, you and Choji get out of here and see if you can find Anbu to help protect these people. What about you and Sakura? Shikamaru asked. Naruto held up a tonfa. More enemy ninja to kill. Just the two of you? Ino asked, sounding a bit hysterical. 3. They all turned to see the masked Raku holding a short blade in one hand. It dripped blood, indicating that she had been busy as well. Team 7's got our orders from Kakashi. The rest of you get a move on. Naruto and his teammates left. The other genin watched as they altered course to kill more enemy ninja. What the hell happened to them? Ino wondered, even as the others began to follow Naruto's orders without question. Naruto stood on the edge of the rail, his lone eye glaring at the barrier that held the man he considered a grandfather. Behind him, Sakura, armed with her kama, worked with their masked mysterious teammate Raku, who was using monowire layered with chakra to slice anyone that came close to ribbons. A thud next to him had Naruto turned to see Makoto in her Anbu mask. Status report. She ordered. The 4 sound ninja comprise the barrier and have themselves in a second barrier on the inside of the first barrier. Naruto said. The Hokage is in there with Orochimaru and Temari. Makoto paused. The Suna girl. Naruto nodded. She's helping the Hokage as we speak. Makoto saw other Anbu gathering. Naruto. Take your squad and continue to work the arena. What about you, sensei? He asked, since it had never been discussed on what to call her in public. I'm going to see if we can get this barrier down and help the Hokage. She told him. Don't touch it. The last 3 Anbu that did it were lit up like Kakashi-sensei's Chidori. Makoto nodded and Naruto grabbed his team. They returned to the killing field that was the stadium floor. Makoto looked at the barrier, and behind the mask her Sharingan spun around wildly as it began to disassemble the barrier. It will take time, she thought as information began to flood her brain as the power of the Sharingan began to look for the weak points in the jutsu. Makoto knew she wouldn't be able to use it, but what many didn't know was that the Sharingan broke jutsus down to components and mathematics. Without the hand signs she'd never complete it, but she could disassemble it and break it. She just needed time. XX. Temari rolled to the side as Orochimaru leapt to attack. She watched as he landed and spat what looked like acid at the Hokage, but the old man had a lot of tricks up his sleeve and created a wall of mud, then with a simple twist sent the wall of mud flying at Orochimaru. While the snake Sanin was dodging, Temari sent a blast of wind at him, knocking him into the mud's path, but he used a body switch with a roof tile and the clay tile was obliterated. Temari swung her fan, intent to corner the man who killed her family and damned her village. Keep trying, girl. In a couple of decades you might be interesting. Orochimaru taunted. Temari snarled, but a gnarled hand of the Hokage moved in front of her. Don't give in to his childish taunts. Keep focused. The 3rd Hokage said, and Temari nodded. You aren't going to win here, Orochimaru. The Hokage said. Really, old man? It looks like that even with the setbacks in my plan, your village will be destroyed and I shall take your feeble life. In the distance beyond, the stadium smoke filled the air, but the Hokage could tell that it was contained to the wall and the buildings there. We shall see, my former student. Hiruzen Sarutobi said as he got ready to renew the battle. XX. Hello Naruto-kun. Naruto spun about and put his bladed tonfa in a defensive X position in front of him, seeing a masked Anbu he didn't know. Who are you? The blonde demanded. A hand went up and pulled off the mask to reveal the glasses and face Naruto recognized. Kabuto. The older teen smiled. I'm happy you remember me. We met only briefly in the early part of the exam. You had those funky cards and asked too many questions and knew information that was classified. You're a traitor. Kabuto nodded. Very good. Naruto looked at the two men on either side of Kabuto. You're Gaara's sensei. The blonde said with a growl. You left him to die alone. Baki twitched as he really didn't want to face the person who defeated Gaara. Naruto. Kakashi landed on one side of Naruto while Guy on the other. Kakashi sensei. The blonde said. Meet the traitor Kabuto, and he's with some Oto nin and Gaara's sensei from Suna. Not very youthful. Guy muttered as he eyed the Oto nin. So how do you want to do this? Kakashi asked his student. I'd like to speak with Gaara's sensei if you don't mind. You can take Kabuto, and Super Bushy Brow here can have the wannabe. The Oto nin growled at the insult. Kabuto held up a hand. I'm sorry, but we really don't have time for this. Your master is going to die. Naruto said. And you aren't going anywhere. The blonde lunged, his bladed tonfa in motion. Baki found out he wasn't just fighting the blonde, as he found himself surrounded by a pink-haired girl and another with a mask. You genin really don't think you can take a jonin, now do you? He said, drawing a pair of kunai. Sakura spun her comma. We're able to beat Kakashi sensei 3 out of 5 using teamwork. Raku spread her hands, showing the monowire there. And you aren't our sensei. The masked Kunoichi said. Baki found himself on the defensive as all three attacked as one. This was something that he wasn't used to, as Suna were trained individually and thrown into teams for whatever mission was needed. As this Konoha's strength? Is this why they are the strongest nation? The Suna Jonin was forced back more. Across the field, Kakashi and Kabuto squared off. Why have you betrayed Konoha? Your father is on the civilian council. Kakashi asked after the pair exchanged strikes and blocks. My father is useless. My loyalty has been to Orochimaru since I was made a genin years ago. Kabuto said, adjusting his glasses. What has Konoha done lately? Let me tell you, Kakashi. Konoha is dying, and it's people like Orochimaru who are the blades that will cut the cancer and remake the ninja villages into his image. Kakashi shook his head. Into pale pedophiles. No thanks. I think I like the status quo. Kabuto and Kakashi clashed with kunai several times. I'm surprised, Kakashi. Kabuto said. About what? You let a student of yours die, the most promising student, and yet you've still carried on. I'm sure your father would be proud. Kabuto said with a smirk. Yes, he would be. Kakashi said with his eye narrowed. Oh, did I make you mad? Kabuto asked innocently. Not at all. Trust me, you wouldn't like me when I'm angry. Kakashi said as they continued to move around. XX. Guy's opponent was squashed in sadly one hit, and the Jonin looked around. He saw that Kakashi and his students had their fights well in hand. He looked around and went to aid the other genin, his thoughts he kept from trying to think of his student Neji and his unyouthful actions. XX. Baki screamed as the pink-haired girl hooked his leg with those blasted weapons, and the masked girl had caught his left arm within her monowire. His right arm was also useless, as the whisker-marked blonde had used the tonfa to slice his arm up like a turkey. You were his sensei. Naruto growled as Baki got to his knees. You are supposed to care for your students, protect them. Baki spat. Then how do you expect them to grow strong while being coddled? Naruto shook his head. You don't get it. Look at us. Genin have done to you in less than 10 minutes. We get strong from helping one another. When one of us falls, the others are there to help us back up so that we learn to do it for ourselves. You know, I think you fit into the category our sensei told us about. Yeah, what's that? Baki snapped. Baki could only watch as the blonde spun the bladed tonfa lazily. You are worse than trash. Naruto spun and in a fluid move Baki's head was separated from his shoulders and sailed across the arena before getting kicked out of the air by Guy, who used it to knock out a Oto ninja that had been attacking the other genin who were covering the civilians still trapped in the arena with an impressive jump kick. Naruto saw Kabuto disengage from his battle with Kakashi and he looked up as the barrier on the roof fell. What the hell happened up there? Naruto demanded and leapt to follow. Kakashi met them halfway. Naruto. Wait. They saw the 4 Oto nin carry away Orochimaru, and Anbu give chase. What the hell happened up there? What about the old man? Naruto demanded. And Temari. Kakashi's lone gaze held a wealth of answers. The blonde wasn't sure if he was going to like them. Naruto stood outside the operating room, his whole posture screamed defeated and broken. Sakura sat on a bench nearby, her legs were pulled up and tucked under her chin in a position that looked highly uncomfortable. Both were still wearing their blood-stained clothes from the battle. Raku had left them to check on her family. Naruto told her to take her time. Kakashi was out with the other Jonin maintaining order. Right now Konoha was under martial law. Makoto stood at the end of the hall keeping anyone else away. Her posture was slumped, as she was exhausted. It had taken a lot of energy in her Sharingan to break the barrier down. But she couldn't sleep, not while the 2 teens behind her needed her most. Makoto's attention was drawn to the latest figure to enter the corridor. Lord Hokage, shouldn't you be in bed? The Hokage was using a crutch as his left leg had been badly injured, the doctors telling him he'd have a permanent limp once it was fully healed. His arms were covered in bandages and a jagged scar went from his hairline towards his jaw, missing his eye by a hair's breadth. He waved Makoto's concern off as he hobbled towards Naruto. Any word yet on Temari's condition? The Hokage asked as Sakura rose and gave him the chair. He nodded his thanks and sank down with a tired sigh. Naruto hadn't moved, didn't even look like he'd heard. It was Sakura who answered. Not yet, Lord Hokage, she said sadly. She knew Naruto was upset about killing Baki and others as she was, and they both felt one another's grief through the bond they had. Gigi. Naruto finally said, his voice soft. What happened in there before Makoto broke the barrier? The Hokage sighed. A battle that held no honor, no tactics. It was a free-for-all and Temari saved my life. Naruto looked at the old man. Flashback. Stupid girl. I'm a Sannin, do you think that you can fight me? Orochimaru hissed. The battle between the Hokage and the Snake Sannin had been intense, with Temari using her wind jutsus to attack and keep Orochimaru off balance and buying the Hokage time to pull off jutsus that Temari had only read about in history books. I don't have to defeat you, just keep you busy. Temari said. The Sannin had tried to use a forbidden jutsu, but Temari had used her summoning jutsu and the side-wielding weasel had managed to destroy the coffins before they rose from the ground. That had pissed Orochimaru off, which led to him attacking Temari with snakes and focusing on her. The Hokage had taken a hard blow earlier and his leg had been broken in several places. While Temari was keeping away from the Sannin and sending blasts of wind at him or his snakes, Hiruzen had summoned several monkeys and transformed them into splints and set his leg as best he could. He summoned Enma and the Monkey Lord was now supporting the Hokage as he formed a long series of seals. Temari saw Orochimaru turn back as he saw Hiruzen's hands a blur of motion and spat grasscutter at the man. Temari used her fan as a boost and soared over the snake Sannin and landed between the Hokage and the blade. Hiruzen's eyes widened as the blade exploded from Temari's gut. She coughed up blood. Finish. Cough whatever, cough, and do it. Temari turned away and using the last of her strength sent a massive vortex of cutting wind at the Sannin and Hiruzen finished his own jutsu. Orochimaru had been caught by the wind blade storm, his arms sliced to ribbons and he heard the Hokage's jutsu and screamed in frustration as he felt the effect take hold. Moments later the barrier dropped and Anbu were rushing in. Kabuto appeared then and with the Oto 4 covering they began to retreat. End flashback. So what did you do to him? Sakura asked. Hiruzen sighed. I traded 10 years of my life to seal away Orochimaru's ability to use jutsus. Temari took a blow that would have killed you. Naruto said looking at the surgery room. The sword she was hit back also carries poison. Hiruzen said sadly. The doors at the end of the corridor opened as Kakashi strolled in. Lord Hokage, shouldn't you be in bed? The Jonin asked. Yes. Now give me your report. The third commanded. Konoha is sealed up and under martial law. Danzo has been arrested for trying to steal power while you were injured. Who arrested him? The Hokage asked. Myself, Guy, Ibiki, Enko and 3 of your best Anbu. Kakashi said. He's in the cells under the tower. Hiruzen nodded. What of his root forces? Currently they are at his estate, which Jiraiya has placed barrier seals on the outside of the walls, keeping them inside. Hiruzen gave a tired sigh. I'm getting too old for this shit. He muttered. Kakashi, I need you to find Jiraiya again and bring him here. I'm sending him along with you and your students on a mission. Gigi. Naruto said, looking at the old man. I need you to find Tsunade Senju and bring her back to Konoha. I am naming her as the 5th Hokage. XX. Team 7 met in the Hokage's hospital room an hour later. I'm sorry you can't stay and see if Temari pulls through, but the needs of Konoha are greater than any one person right now. The Hokage had been found by the nurses and dragged back to his room. Naruto nodded. Raku was in a fresh set of clothes as she'd been summoned as well. Jiraiya was leaning against the wall next to the window. He was pensive as he studied the team before him. Jiraiya, you will take Naruto, Sakura and Makoto with you to look for Tsunade. Kakashi, I need you here and Raku will be helping the other genin with various missions. They nodded. Looks like we're going to have to hold off on some of the talks I was planning. Kakashi said. I'll help them. Makoto stood against the door with her mask off. Any ideas what to expect? She asked, looking at Jiraiya. He shook his head. We'll be traveling light, but at the same time you'll need enough things for an extended mission. Makoto nodded. I'll help them pack then. She said, looking at Kakashi. Kakashi-sensei. Sakura said from where she was standing next to Naruto, neither paying attention to the fact their arms were touching. I may be upset with her, but could you check on my mother? Kakashi gave her one of his U-shaped eye smiles. Sure. Naruto. The Hokage said. As of now you are promoted to Chunin. Kakashi smiled as he pulled a Chunin's vest out of a scroll and presented it to Naruto. Congratulations. Naruto looked at the vest, then at the Hokage. The old man saw it in his eye. It's okay, my boy. You earned it. Sakura smiled and gave the blonde a hug. Congratulations. Raku said. You certainly earned it. Naruto closed his eye. Sasuke. We are one step closer to completing your goal. The team left under the cover of darkness, Jiraiya dragging Naruto and Sakura from bed hours before the sun rose. Kakashi dragged himself from his bed when he heard the yelling and Jiraiya barely making it from the room Naruto and Sakura shared. Word of advise, Master Jiraiya, those two are very protective of one another. As much as I enjoyed your books, please don't use my students for inspiration. Kakashi said, standing against his doorframe, his mask in place, and he was wearing a baggy pair of sleep pants. Makoto slipped from her room wearing a mask similar to Kakashi's. Her hair was bound in a braid. Sakura and Naruto exited their room glaring at Jiraiya. Let's go. Let's go. Jiraiya said. I want to be on the road before anyone rises. Bye, Kakashi-sensei. Sakura said. Naruto gave a wave and a yawn. Don't forget to check on Raku. Naruto managed before they were out the door. The darkness swallowed them and they were gone. XX. Ichiraku's ramen stand. Ayame yawned as she prepared the ingredients for the day. She looked up when the tarp was pulled back. Hello, Kakashi-san. She said. Looking around, she spoke in a lower voice. I take it they've gone. Kakashi nodded. Your orders for now are to meet me late in the day for one-on-one training. If you want, we can do some missions. The Hokage says you can either use this as downtime or you can work with the other genin teams. Ayame placed a stack of bowls aside. I think I'll use this as downtime and train with you. I need to sharpen my skills up. I'd also like to spend some time with Dad. Kakashi nodded. Meet at training ground 7 then at 5. If I'm out on a mission, I'll leave a message here with your father. Ayame nodded. Will they be okay? Kakashi gave her his patented eye smile. Naruto and Sakura have come a long way in a short amount of time. They'll be fine. Besides, they have Master Jiraiya and Makoto with them. Challenging them would be suicidal. XX. On the road, Jiraiya studied the two teens. He had been surprised when he slipped into the blonde's bedroom to find him and the girl snuggled together. Of course, his perverted giggle had woken Naruto and his movement had woken the girl. The sheer volume of shuriken and kunai they launched had him out of the room with speed that would have put the Hiroshin to shame. Where the hell did they get all of them from? he'd thought. Now as he was keeping pace behind them, he thought about the report he'd read. They have the Sharingan but only have used it in training conditions with Kakashi. Outside of the time the girl used it in her fight with the Hyuga, they aren't dependent on it at least. He looked ahead where another surprise was waiting. Makoto Uchiha, there's a blast from the past. It will be havoc once everyone learns she's been alive all this time. Hey pervy sage, Naruto called. I told you not to call me that. Jiraiya called ahead. Yeah, well it's what you are. Naruto said, stopping to wait for the Sannin to catch up. Where the hell are we going? The blonde asked. It would be nice to know where we're going. Sakura added her opinion. I think it's to know as well. We are looking for Tsunade after all. Makoto appeared behind the teens. Jiraiya sighed. I have a couple of places where she could be, but it all depends on if the debt collectors have caught up to her. Makoto sighed while the teens looked a bit perturbed. You mean to tell us that we're looking for someone that's running away from? Yes. Jiraiya said, cutting him off. Don't worry about that. We need to convince her to come back. Why? Jiraiya sighed. She's not only my former teammate, but she is the best medic in the world and the only one who could probably heal that girl that saved Sensei. Naruto and Sakura shared looks. Let's go. The blonde leapt to the next tree. Naruto. Jiraiya called, and when the blonde looked back, the toad sage pointed in another direction. We're going that way. The curses Naruto sent his way were impressive. Makoto grabbing Naruto's ear, not so much as the yell could have shattered glass. XX. They made camp as the sun set. We'll be at the town tomorrow. Jiraiya said as he leaned against a tree and watched the fire Makoto had made. Naruto and Sakura were already curled up and sharing a bedroll. Jiraiya gave a soft giggle, his hand reaching for his notebook only to find the tip of a kunai touching the tip of his nose. Master Jiraiya, while I will not deny you are a great ninja, if you think you are going to use those two teens for any kind of inspiration in those books of yours, I will save Lady Tsunade the trouble and castrate you myself. Am I clear? Jiraiya blinked and the blade withdrew. Good. Now you better have something to show them tomorrow. Jiraiya watched as the woman who wore a mask take up a place where she could watch over the already asleep pair. He watched her while they'd traveled from Konoha, and she taught them both fire jutsus that he had to admit he'd never seen before, and what had gotten him was that neither student had used the Sharingan other than to memorize the hand seals. They worked on perfecting them and on speed. He watched as the female Uchiha worked on speed drills, stopping them when they were wrong. They don't use the Sharingan and cheat, they learn the seals and are learning them over and over so that they are second nature. That is what the true users of the Sharingan should have done. Jiraiya thought about the pair of teens well into the night before feeding the fire enough wood to last till the sun rose. XX. Dream. You suck. I'm a Chunin. Naruto said to the figure in the shadows. Yeah, using something stolen. The shadow countered. Naruto. The whisker-marked blonde turned from the shadows towards Sakura, who seemed to come from somewhere beyond the shadows, and they allowed her to enter and sealed up behind her. Ah, the other part of the traitorous duo. The voice taunted. Naruto, what's going on? Sakura asked as she reached the blonde. She was shocked at how cold to the touch he was. And you were supposed to be the smart one. The voice taunted. Stop this. Naruto's done nothing to you. Sakura yelled at the darkness that surrounded him. Oh, but that's a lie, and you know it as well, Pinky. So tell me, have you boned him yet? The voice's tone held a sneer. Sakura, when she got scared, got mad now thanks to Kakashi's training. She reached for her chain and sickle only to find them gone. Poor little Genin, left behind by your team, even if the Kyuubi helped the idiot. The way the voice said idiot had both Naruto and Sakura pause. Sasuke, she whispered. Sasuke. The laugh was familiar yet entirely different. Sakura saw Naruto with his head lowered. So you and the Dobi not only stole my eyes, but you've moved your crush onto him. Tell me, is he better than me? Sakura's face flushed and she reacted out of anger. The dreamed Sasuke went flying after a well-timed uppercut from the enraged Kunoichi. Sasuke got up and chuckled. Why, Sakura, I didn't know you had it in you. Aren't I your precious Sasuke-kun? He said in a mocking tone of voice. Sakura growled and would have attacked again if not for Naruto putting a restraining hand on her forearm. You're not Sasuke, he said. Of course I am. Another voice entered the conversation. No, you're not. Not really. Mother. Sasuke said in shock. Makoto stepped out of the shadows. You're a perversion, an echo of my son. These two have done everything possible to honor your memory. They have taken your dream, your ambition as their own. Makoto looked at the pair. You need to let him go. The memory of him is killing you both. It is playing on your insecurities. Sasuke stood there glaring at her now. Why should they be happy? I'm dead and it's the Dobi's fault. I shouldn't have saved him. No, no, you shouldn't have, Naruto said, his head tilted down, his bangs hiding his face. Sakura gasped and reached for him only to find Sasuke there. I say that you recognize the truth. A demon like you should never have been allowed to live, while I an elite shish. What Sasuke would have said wasn't known as he was once again sent flying by a chakra-packed punch from Sakura. I said it once and I'll say it again. I won't let anyone disrespect Naruto. Not the villagers, not our fellow ninja, not my own mother and certainly not you, a memory of our dead teammate who threw himself in the way to save Naruto. You aren't Sasuke, you're not even a good imitation. He saw something special in Naruto, something he saw that was worth saving. Sakura ranted as she stomped towards the downed Sasuke. I'm sorry you're dead, but you are dead and I won't let your memory hurt Naruto anymore. If I have to destroy you, then so be it. Makoto watched as the pink-haired girl proceeded to thrash the image of her youngest son while she stood by with the arm around Naruto's shoulders. He had been tense the moment the dream Sasuke started blaming him. She saw his eye widen in disbelief as Sakura punched her son and proceeded to beat the image down. Why Sakura-chan? His voice was soft and Makoto barely heard it, but Sakura stopped mid-beating and appeared before the whisker-marked blonde. Her hand cupped his cheek. Don't you listen to him, this isn't Sasuke. The real Sasuke saved your life, he saw you. You were important to him. This baka is a twisted excuse that's trying to hurt you. Why Sakura-chan? You loved him. I'm. Sakura did like she did in the hospital, she pulled him into a kiss and poured her all into it. When they finally separated, she smiled at him. You're right, I did love him. At this his face fell and she continued, I love the idea of him, but understand me and listen to my words. I love you Naruto Uzumaki and there is no changing my mind on that. What I felt for Sasuke was a crush, what I feel for you is scary like a hurricane. You and I are linked and you will never doubt what I feel for you. I will show you how I feel all the time. Clapping had the pair look to see Sasuke clapping and a familiar smirk on his face. Take care of her Dobi, or I'll be back. And with that Sasuke faded away. What the hell? Naruto asked standing with his arms still around Sakura. Both looked to Makoto who shrugged. You'll need to ask Inoichi. But meanwhile, wake up. XX. Camp. Both teens sat up looking around, they spotted Makoto was kneeling next to them. Was that real? Sakura asked, her hand gripping Naruto's arm. Yes, Makoto said, covering the pair's exposed Sharingan. They looked over to see Jiraiya snoring and the fire giving a soft glow as it had died down during the night. I meant it. You'll need to talk with Inoichi, but that dream phantom shouldn't bother you any further. The Uchiha female said as she moved back towards the fire. Sleep. You have a couple of hours before you have to rise. Naruto stretched out and Sakura snuggled up to him, entwining their fingers. I meant it Naruto, she said, kissing his chin before resting her head on his chest, her ear above his heart. XX. They spent time in a couple of small trade towns, Makoto working with the two teens while Jiraiya met with his informants. The Uchiha matriarch watched as wherever there was a gap in one of the pair's defenses the other was there covering it. She had never seen a synchronization like this, but she would also admit there was never something like this before. She knew there were bonds made from the Kyuubi, and with the genetic security features with the Sharingan there was something there, and due to her clan's paranoia they were in whole new territory. I just hope I am up to dealing with it, Makoto thought. It was then they entered the latest town. There was a festival going on and Jiraiya had taken off after they had gotten one room with 4 beds. Makoto was about to have a family reunion, one that was going to be shocking, and to the members of Team 7 it would be a turning point. XX. Makoto watched as Naruto and Sakura were sitting across from one another meditating. She had them doing mental exercises, mentally dissecting a jutsu that she had them learn with their Sharingan. Granted, it was a low-level fire jutsu, but she wanted them to use the analytical aspect of the Sharingan to exercise their minds. The knock at the door made her sigh. It looks like Jiraiya lost his keys again. She thought about how the Sanin had returned to their room at a hotel having lost his key, smelling of cheap liquor, smoke and the cloying scent of cheap perfume. I've got it, sensei. Naruto's voice broke into her contemplation and she watched the blonde slip from his spot and go to answer the door that was knocked on again. Come on, pervy sage, it's not even past dinner time, are we going to have to tie your keys to your neck like a child? Naruto said jokingly as he opened the door. Hello, Naruto-kun. Makoto heard a voice she hadn't heard since that night a decade ago. The night the Uchiha clan ended. The night her eldest son had made a name for himself and ended clan Uchiha. And now he was here, after one of her students and the remains of her youngest son pulsed. Itachi Uchiha looked at the whisker-marked blonde he hadn't seen in over a decade. He took note of the covered eye and wondered if Naruto was copying Kakashi as he remembered how the blonde would mimic some of his protectors when he was a child and Itachi had been assigned to his protection detail. Is this the fox brat? A voice behind Itachi asked. Naruto spotted the man and he looked to be part fish. I think you have the wrong room. Nobody here ordered the sushi. Naruto said, then closed and locked the door. In the hallway the 2S ranked missing ninja blinked. Did he just? Kisame growled. He did. Itachi said, and before he could utter more, Kisame lashed out, kicking the door open and it went crashing across the room. The empty room. I'm cutting his damn legs and arms off. Kisame said as he was getting frustrated. The brat shouldn't be this quick. XX. On the streets. Why didn't we stay and fight? Naruto asked as Makoto dragged him and Sakura along and stopped in a nearby alley. You are not ready for Itachi, and the thug with him was a former member of the Seven Swordsmen. Naruto knew of one swordsman and he had nearly destroyed his team. Makoto-sensei, what are we going to do? Sakura asked as she shouldered her traveling pack. Luckily they hadn't unpacked. We need to keep moving. Makoto said, adjusting her mask. Damn it, Jiraiya, where are you? She muttered as she tried to sense Jiraiya, but standing so close to Naruto was like trying to see the night sky while blindfolded. Peeking around the corner. Let's go. She said, and they hurried down the street. How did they find us? Naruto asked. You. Makoto said. You have so much chakra, it's like sending a flare up. Sakura looked over her shoulder for signs of pursuit. Is there a way we can mask it? Naruto asked, worried not for himself, but for Sakura. Not right now, Makoto said. Then we need to separate. Naruto said. You and Sakura find pervy sage, they'll follow me. I'll lead them out of town where no one can get hurt. No, Sakura said. She's right. Alone they'll take you. But we can ambush them. Naruto wasn't so sure. His Sharingan eye throbbed, but he remained silent on that. I saw a spot outside of town when we arrived. He said, and the trio increased their speed, knowing that they didn't have long. XX. Itachi and Kisame found Naruto outside of town, surrounded by boulders. The whisker-marked teen stood with a roaring fire between him and them. You shouldn't have run, Itachi said. You upset Kisame greatly. Naruto shrugged. Cry me a river. Itachi held an arm up, stopping Kisame, who growled. You taking after your sensei with your fashion sense. Naruto shrugged. What can I say? It drives the women wild. You will come with us. Itachi said. Naruto snorted. And your partner there will sodomize you with his sword. Not happening. We're not asking, brat, we're telling. Kisame growled. You say that like you believe it will happen. Ask Itachi there how hard it was to catch me, and I've had years to improve. Itachi often had to hunt Naruto down when he was younger for the Hokage, and he along with several top Anbu were run into the ground by a laughing child. It is for the greater good, Naruto. What we are doing could bring peace to the whole world. Yeah, and what does the furball have to do with that? We're going to rip it out of you. Kisame sneered before Itachi could speak. And then we're tossing your corpse into a ditch. Naruto shook his head. You're dumb as you are ugly. He uncrossed his arms. Telling me that really won't make me come with you. You have no choice. Kisame sneered as he lowered the wrapped blade from his shoulder. Oh, there are always choices. Naruto said, and he was far too calm. Itachi looked around but saw no one. Yeah, well, I chose to cut off your legs. Kisame said and took a step forward only to have Itachi pull him back. I must admit, Naruto, you've gotten better at hiding traps. If I didn't know you, Kisame would have stepped into a minefield. Kisame looked down and saw patches of dirt, indicating hidden traps. Naruto shrugged as he watched the pair. Difference is these aren't paint bombs. Itachi nodded his head. What are we gonna do? Kisame asked in a low voice. Itachi knew that Naruto hadn't had much time, but the blonde never needed much to lay traps before. Itachi pulled a kunai and tossed it into the middle of the minefield. He watched as where the kunai had erupted in a pillar of flames. You have gotten better, Itachi said, knowing that if they had stepped in there they would have been incinerated. Anbu wasn't the same without you, Naruto said. Most of them didn't have a sense of humor. This is real touching, Kisame said. Let's grab him and go. Naruto ignored him and looked at Itachi. Does he have a sense of humor? Itachi looked at his partner and shook his head. A dark one that usually sees someone in pain. Kisame smirked and gave a dark chuckle. Naruto his head and looked at Itachi. I see. Kisame didn't even get to ask what it was that Naruto saw when he jumped back from a hail of shuriken. I was wondering where your friends were. The shark-like nuke Nin said as he used his wrapped blade to block the incoming projectiles. When the two men looked, Naruto was between two women. One wore a mask of an Anbu while the other was the pink-haired girl, and like Naruto she had her eye covered with an eye patch. You cannot have him. The pink-haired girl snarled, holding a kunai in a reverse grip. So you weren't sent out with just Jiraiya-sama as protection? Itachi said, eyeing the Anbu. I do not know you, he said. There are a lot of things you don't know, Uchiha. The distorted voice from behind the mask answered. Come on, Itachi. It's one lousy Anbu and a wet behind the ears, one-eyed girl. We can take them and the Kyuubi brat. Kisame snarled. Kisame leapt and was intercepted by the Anbu and was shocked when he came out of the losing side and ended up landing behind Itachi, sporting a set of bruised ribs from the wicked kick. Not bad, Kisame said with a grimace. Itachi watched the trio. Take a picture. Sakura snapped. It was a twitch, but Itachi nearly reached them when the Anbu moved again, and after an exchange Itachi landed where he had started, his cloak slightly ruffled. Who are you, Anbu? Many of those attacks are Uchiha clan style. The Anbu was silent. Those are clan secrets, and you are female and too old to be my little brother, and he is the only Uchiha I left alive. The Anbu drew the short sword strapped to her back. Are you sure of that, Itachi? Kisame was about to move when Jiraiya appeared with a woman slung over his shoulder. Sadly, the edge of his sandal hit one of the traps and it set off a earth-style trap which set off the other traps. We're out of here, Itachi said as he turned away. We're leaving, Kisame said, looking on as the Sannin dodged trap after trap. Capturing the Kyuubi container is no longer viable at this time, Itachi said. The Dew left as the three Konoha watched as Jiraiya dodged trap after trap, some of them leaving him singed or slightly cut or bruised. Jiraiya turned to avoid the punch from the pink-haired girl and walked into a roundhouse kick from Makoto. Because you were off chasing some skirt, Itachi nearly captured Naruto. The former matron of the Uchiha clan snarled. I was just, he started and found himself pinned to the nearest tree. I don't care for your excuses. When we get back to Konoha you can bet that I will be filing charges of dereliction against you. This is a mission, not a Sunday stroll for you to try and get laid. Makoto turned to look at the pair. Grab your gear, we're moving on. Naruto and Sakura were silent as they went to where they stashed their gear. Makoto, come on. I didn't think they'd be after Naruto yet. The Toad Sage tried to plead his case. You are here to help train them and find Tsunade. If you so much as go and peep for more smut for that stupid book you write, I will personally make sure you think you're a 5-year-old girl and have Sakura braid your hair before I personally remove your manhood. Jiraiya swallowed. Now, grab your shit-o great and powerful Toad Sage and haul your pail. Makoto snarled and walked after Naruto and Sakura. Jiraiya released a breath he'd been holding. That is one scary woman, he mumbled. Jiraiya was yelled back at him. If she was a bit older or a bit younger I'd be in love. He muttered and hurried after them, wondering how he could work around her new restrictions. XX. A week of following leads led them backtracking several times. During that week, Makoto had worked with Sakura, leaving Naruto to learn from Jiraiya. The Toad Sage had begun to teach the blonde the steps to create the Rasengan and was shocked the blonde had the first 2 stags down within days. The last stage was giving the blonde trouble, and it was Makoto who found him asleep in the field, the remains of balloons and rubber balls littering the ground around him. He passed out just a few minutes ago. She turned to glare at Jiraiya, who held up a hand. I've been here the whole time. I was teaching him how I was taught the move and he's been very stubborn. Makoto studied the blonde. He's nearly exhausted his chakra and that hand is showing signs of damage. Why didn't you make him stop? I haven't known the brat long, but even I can see he's determined to learn and will work himself into the ground only to do it again and again. Makoto sighed. Naruto is what the Uchiha should have been. She said, taking a seat and watching the blonde sleep. He is the epitome of hard work. Itachi when he was younger worked hard. He trained and even when he used his Sharingan he would work to master anything he'd copied. They were silent for several minutes. Sakura would have been a good branch member. She said and a soft smile touched her face. That hair would have been the envy of many of my clan. She looked at Jiraiya. When I was their age, I was a strange girl. I used to dye my hair, drove my mother insane. Jiraiya listened as the female Uchiha matron talked about random things. Everything about my clan was about image and power. She shook her head then stood and Jiraiya watched as she picked up Naruto and carried him back to camp. He watched as she laid him out right next to Sakura and raised an eyebrow as the two teens moved together. Can you explain that? He asked. Sensei gave me an overview, but he left out a lot of details and their sensei was very tight-lipped. Makoto shook her head. Maybe when they've known you longer. But to me, you haven't earned the right. Makoto took up her position as the fire crackled and the toad sage sat in silence watching the pair and wondering what he had all missed over the years and thought about the female Uchiha's words. XX. 3 days later the group of 4 entered Tanzuka. Sakura looked around. Sensei, what's going on? Makoto looked around. It looks like some kind of festival. It's gambling week. Jiraiya said. This town is made up of casinos and gambling houses. He gestured to a wall with numerous flyers. She's here. She wouldn't be able to pass up this much betting. Naruto looked around. So we're supposed to find a busty, blonde woman who loses as much as you peek on women. What are you thinking? Sakura asked as they ignored Jiraiya's protests and his dance of he being a super pervert. Shadow clones. Naruto said. I swarm the town using Jiraiya's description and when a clone finds her and dispels. Makoto nodded. It would save time. Her eyes watching everyone as she too ignored Jiraiya's antics. It's a shame her photo was her genin one. Naruto said as they had read up on Tsunade before they left Konoha. And my interaction with the Sannin was limited. My husband and the clan council forbade us from interacting with them. Usually only Anbu or my husband dealt with them on an extended basis. The Uchiha matriarch said. By the time I returned to active duty, the Sannin were no longer in Konoha and only Jiraiya returned from time to time. That's because I'm awesome. The mentioned toad sage said popping up next to them. You're still here? Naruto asked in a flat tone and they watched as Jiraiya face planted and sobbed about, no respect. Let's do this. Naruto said and made the familiar cross-shaped seal. Makoto watched as nearly 1,000 Narutos appeared and scattered in every direction. It's something to see, isn't it, sensei? Sakura said smiling as her teammate used his favorite jutsu. I'm just glad he's learned about its secret and how to manipulate the amount of chakra he pumps into them. Naruto rejoined them and grinned. If Jiraiya's old teammate is here, we'll find her. He looked around. Hey, where's Pervy Sage? A muffled shout had all three look down to see Naruto standing on Jiraiya's back with his face in the dirt. XX. It took 10 minutes before Naruto looked around. Found her. He said and with Sakura took off down the road. Makoto followed while Jiraiya was still going on about being used as a doormat. They found a dozen of Naruto's shadow clones waiting outside a bar. Let me go first. Jiraiya said as Naruto worked on dispelling his clones in groups of 10. Oh, and be careful, she has a temper. Jiraiya said and not even 8 seconds later came flying back out and created a crater. Something tells me she isn't happy to see you. Naruto said standing over the groaning Jiraiya. Makoto behind her mask scowled. You are coming with a Tsunade, the only question is will you be conscious when you do it?